Okay, members? Excuse me, gentlemen. Okay, we'll start our meeting. Before I want to get started, for our large audience that we have this here tonight and the viewing public, I'd like to introduce Wayne Nicholas as he's our new director of planning. Wayne came after a long, hard fight through and quite a few different people that we interviewed. So we're from Grafton, and what's your home? You're from?
From Auburn.
And from Auburn.
Just came from Grafton.
From Grafton, where they had a lot of home building down there. How many housing starts did they have last year?
New homes are probably over 200.
Over 200. So they had a small town and probably twice as much or 3 times of what we have. So he comes to us with a lot of experience, and I'm looking forward to working with Wayne in the following years. Wayne, do you got anything to say? Okay.
Take it all in.
Take it all in. Okay, we'll have our first hearing, 6:30 hearing. Continued public hearing for Mitch Gill, 435 Lancaster Street, Leominster. Special permit for the purpose of building a duplex on the westerly side of Baker Street, an unaccepted street. Is Mr. Gill here, a representative?
Spoke to him today, he said he's here at 6:30, so.
Traffic's heavy.
Yeah, it's bad out there. Snow. I make a motion to go to the regular meeting.
Yeah, why don't we continue this, and we'll table it. Oh, here he is.
Oh, never mind.
You don't have to.
Make a motion to never mind. Mitch wants to jump down there in the corner. Does the board want him down here?
Yeah.
Behind Tom.
That's right.
Well, I'm on the right hand of my father.
Give you the right.
It is. Smile.
Smile, we say. Getting off carried in tonight.
Really bug. Catch up buses in the corner.
Reputation.
Yeah, they never start those ones before that. They won't be fine tonight.
I think we'll look at them together.
No, the plan.
Yeah, 3 should be enough.
3 should be enough. There you go. Yeah. We'll share this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure, not because sales are big, it's the holidays.
Yeah, because I want to find out where the street is. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I didn't even know.
Yeah, well, that's a letter that's right. Yeah, well, that was in your, I put it right here, it's in your packet, yeah. Okay.
Good evening.
Yes.
My name is Mitchell Gill. I'm of Boucher Construction Corp., who is the builder developer for this project, which is a 13,470 square foot lot located on Baker Street, and which is off of the southerly side of Wheeler Street, which is located just off of the easterly side of Lancaster Street, opposite Periscope Pool. And the property is, we're proposing to build a duplex. And some of the issues that came up from the last hearing, one was the topography. The original topography that we had used was taken from older plans, and the property has since been surveyed. And the topography that's here in the plans before you tonight is what is actually out in the field, existing conditions, and it was approximately 4 to 5 feet in some areas, different than what was shown on the other plans. And so what we did is we took another hard look at that, regraded, we came up with an absolute plan because there were some questions at the last meeting. Another question was the sewer, will it be ejector pumps, can we go gravity? And what we did is we worked it so that with the new grades, we're going to have to pour approximately a double foundation. And in doing that, in bringing in the proposed gravity sewer, it will meet gravity, so there is no need for any ejector pumps for both units. Another issue was the drainage. What was going to happen to the lot once it's built out? Is it going to flood other areas? Is it going to go on other people's property? So what we did is we hired Alton Engineering, and Alton Stone is also here with me tonight. He did the stormwater runoff hydrology analysis of the lot in the surrounding areas. And in so doing, what we had to do is, if you can see on your plan, it's sort of a kidney shape at elevation 380, which is in this area right here.
I see it.
And then the low point is elevation 378. Now that's the area that some of the neighbors have been concerned about, and wetlands issues and whatnot. And we went to, as you know, we had filed with local conservation commission. We've since gone before them, and they gave us a negative determination, and that there is no wetlands and they have no jurisdiction at all over this property. But the abutters, again, were concerned about a possible vernal pool. It could not be proven that it is a vernal pool, possibly in another time, wet weather, whatever. But so what conservation asked us is, we assume worst case conditions. So we said we would respect that area, and we would not touch it, we wouldn't fill it. So what we did is, when we said, well, we put a retaining wall also in to protect that area. So what we did is we got a retaining wall that maximum height is approximately 6 feet and tapers down on both ends to about approximately 2 feet in height. At the top of that, we propose a fence. So that area, we did say we would respect it. We wouldn't fill it. We would stay away from it, and we would try to utilize this area for drainage, which is what's happening right now. Right now, this area goes to the low point, and that's why at times it looks like it's a wetlands. So we did the issues that were brought up at the last meeting, and if there's any other questions regarding those revisions, I can help you also as far as the drainage runoff. Mr. Stone can help you in any of those questions.
Okay. So I think those were the concerns that we had, were the
Correct.
the grade. Now, did you determine what you have for a grade here?
Yes, as far as what area? Oh, great.
Yeah.
From Wheeler to the height of,
Yeah, it's running approximately, the existing grade is approximately 7 to 8%.
Okay.
And what we did is, and what we're doing is, I have the grades on the plan for you. Is, you can see at the end of the existing pavement is 7%, and we're running in front of the first unit 4%, and then in front of the second unit 7%.
Okay. Question I have to you of the end of existing pavement,
Yep,
And I realize this is outside of your, as that goes up the hill towards the other end of Baker Street,
yes.
okay? There's a slight rise there.
That's where it is right now.
Huh? Going towards Florence, towards Florence, going to your left from there, the other way.
Going,
That way.
going this way.
Going that way, right.
Correct, we're cutting down some of that hill, correct.
Okay. What is the elevation of Baker Street, at the end of Baker Street at Florence, on that end?
Up here,
Yeah,
I don't have that.
okay. Question, concern that we have, or concern that I have, and some people have, is this. As you brought this down to 4% and you get to 7%, that's fine for your sites.
Correct.
What I'm concerned about is that this street, is that there are 2 more lots over here and several lots across the street from you.
Correct.
That if you bring that down, in order to keep that at 7% grade, they may not be able to do that. It could cause a problem, because I don't know what that grade, what that elevation is.
Right, we're not here for those lots, and I understand your concern for the other
But
lots.
see, I don't want, we're trying to do some planning here, so I don't want to do, it's not, we're trying to do some forward thinking here. So I don't want to do anything with your 2 lots
Right.
that's going to prevent them, or those people, from developing those lots
I can answer
also.
that in one way. If we own the lots, we are also in the gravel business, and we know this is gravel here, we would cut the grade down, and we would meet right through to Florence, per subdivision rules and regs, the grades. And, you know, we would cut down the hill. It's gravel. And
If you cut the hill, then those other lots, all of a sudden now you've got another incline on the other side. You've got a steep incline on the other side.
I'm saying cutting those lots too. If, that's what I would do if I own those lots.
Oh, yeah, but we have to go to the grade of Florence Street, as it is at the,
Right.
where it ends from the Baker Street,
Correct.
Florence, and where that pavement ends,
Yep.
we've got to match it up. I'm not so much concerned about the lots, I'm concerned about the expansion of Baker Street, and to making sure that that is doable. I'm not asking you to do it,
Yeah.
okay? We're not asking you to run it through there, that's their responsibility when it comes to their time. I just want to make sure
I know at the last
that
meeting,
that is
you
doable.
yourself had said you'd like to see 7%. So,
A max of 7, right?
right, so that's why we didn't, try not to exceed 7.
Right.
And naturally, we're gonna make what works for our property. That's what we're doing.
Right, I agree. What I'm saying is it doable to be able to do those other lots and continue that through?
I didn't look at Florence Street. This is the property that we're looking at developing.
Right, I agree.
Mitch, is it, in your opinion, we went from Wheeler Street to Florence Street. Are you looking at more than the 10% grade from the point of Wheeler
From
Street?
existing, I wouldn't want to guess. I wouldn't want to guess.
I would think it's more than 10%. I was out there Sunday. And I think what
Once you get beyond like this point here, yeah, it does get pretty steep. But part of that too is on this slope over here. So, you know, where's the right of way?
Well, the other thing I'm looking at is, I walked one into the other a couple different times. I saw where you were going to put the houses. I saw what was considered a vernal pool, or what people were, trying to determine if it was or not. And it was pretty wet in there. This was before the rains. But I'm saying, if I'm standing on Wheeler Street and I walk all the way up to Florence Street, we got more than a 10% grade from one end to the other. Existing.
Again, if I was developing the subdivision of that entire project, if we owned all this land, I would be cutting that hill off. It's gravel. Right.
To the left.
Right. And again, looking up the hill and walking up the hill, you're not really sure which way you're meandering up the hill too. It's still within the right of way.
Yeah, just the cut. I walked the cut area,
Right.
and then I gave myself a margin of error on both sides.
It's pretty straight, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty straight. I mean, it's not like it wanders off that much. But I'm concerned because of what happened down in the corner too, with the other cutting of that bank that shouldn't have happened either. They clear cut that other bank down there too, which shouldn't have been.
Right.
But that's got nothing to do with you.
Right.
It's just from Wheeler Street to Florence Street. And we're not showing anything past your proposed,
I didn't ask, at the last meeting, I didn't ask him for anything. That's his property, okay? And we have that question, the question has come up, but we don't have any elevations
past that point.
past that point. See, the drawing shows Baker Street as being from after he makes the bend going pretty straight. So,
The Wheeler to Florence.
right. Now, you got, how high is this berm? Is it just a street berm?
Yeah, it's just a regular Cape Cod berm.
Just that's on this side, that's all that is Cape Cod, so it'd just be a cut on that side. So you're not doing anything to the... Okay.
So this grade is,
Yeah, this is like, see, over here, he's 70 here, he's 4 here.
so he's dipping down almost.
Comes down a little bit and then goes back up. So I don't know how high that is, I don't know how to find that out either.
Well, subdivision regulation requires a dead-end street shall not be greater than 2% for the last 100 feet into closed end. So, you can take that into mind.
I don't know if this would, does this count as a dead-end street?
Well, at this point it does.
Push it, if it goes all the way through, it wouldn't.
Well, then, yeah, if you push it all the way through, which is what you're saying on one hand, but then on the other
Yeah,
hand,
it's the paper
you'll be
street.
cutting it down even more if you
Paper Street, that wouldn't apply. At this time, it's just an incomplete street rather than a dead end, because the actual Paper Street goes all the way through, and it's not dead end.
Mitch, what's the width on the street?
is 21 and a half.
21 and a half?
That's what existing is. And proposed is 21 and a half also.
That's pavement. 21 and a half pavement?
That's gutter to gutter, plus there's a berm outside that. So it'd be 23 and a half, and edge of pavement, back of berm.
Okay. Do you have anything else to add, Mitch?
No, thank you.
Okay. I'll open up the hearing. Anybody in the audience?
Rick Terrace. My mother lives on 39 Wheeler Street. We came in late, so I don't know what he was talking about.
I was there.
With the water would run off into my mother's land. I want to know what he proposed to do about that.
Came Terrace?
That's this corner.
I didn't know if he said it.
What, excuse me.
The corner lot.
39, yeah, okay.
Cameron Terrace is corner lot.
Okay, what we did is, we have naturally cutting fill in this side of the lot. So what we did is, this slope is coming down this way now. Right now, the existing slope goes like this.
Right.
It goes right down, it's pretty flat down in that backyard. So what we're doing is, this slope is coming down, going towards this property line, and then we will put in a swale. So the runoff that's coming down this way will be caught in a swale and follow the swale down this way and go down to the low point for storage in this area.
Okay.
This is 384 over here.
This was all private.
384 to 382. Yep. Okay. Yeah, just to look at, per the drawing, and I know you can't see it, the back of your parent, that house there, it's, the elevation is right now it's 384, and then the swale on that side is 2 feet lower, it's 382. So it's actually 2 feet, so it should pick that up back to that side. Okay? That's it. Is there anyone else? Do I have any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll ask one more time. Do I have any other questions or comments? I'll ask one more time. Do I have any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to close the hearing. Have a motion?
Make the motion to close the hearing.
Motion is made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Hearing is closed. Okay, why don't you take the color one, Carol? I'll leave that there, and if we have any discussion later on. Second hearing is for Edward Cataldo, 10 registered voters, amend Article 1, revised ordinance, Section 22-12/12.5, non-conforming use of structures and lots by adding for the use of authorized by special permit to the end of Section 25.5 and creating a new subsection 22-12/12.5.1, it should be, which will allow special permit by the Board of Appeals, an existing building in an industrial commercial district to be used for other listed in Article 2, Section 2226, is being permit of right by special permit of the City Council. By special permit. City Council petition number 40-05. Okay. Do I have anyone here to speak in favor of this? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Tom McNamara, 346 Elm Street, Leominster. And I am a commercial broker in Leominster and one of the petitioners for the petition. And in my job in Leominster, I see a lot of people coming in looking for commercial space, mainly commercial space. And as you know, if you look at the zoning map of Leominster, there's small strips of commercial land. And in some cases, the only thing available may be an industrial building or a standalone building. Now in the past, these people would go to the building inspector and he would say, I'm sorry, that's zone industrial, you can't put your commercial use there. However, you can go to the ZBA and try to get a use variance. And they would do that. And that's how the problem was handled in the past. Recently, that's no longer allowed in Leominster. So there is no process, no procedure for these people to continue. And so what this petition hopes to do is bring back the ZBA into the process, or at least somebody that can take the building inspector's denial and on a case-by-case basis for that business. And in some cases, I've had communication companies, bookstores, a dry cleaner, trying to go on buildings like on 117, there's on industrial. Or if you look at Nashua Street, we've had some people go in there, that's industrial. And if it fits, let the ZBA say it does. If it doesn't, let them say no. But there's people trying to move into the city, and most of them city residents are trying to open up businesses here, and this just gives them another chance.
Thank you, Mr. McNamara. Yes, sir.
George Watts, representing the Normandin family. You've seen us before, you've heard us before a number of times. Mrs. Normandin is the owner of a vacant and abandoned building that's in an industrial zone. As Mr. McNamara pointed out recently, Leominster has clamped down on use variances. That would be the decision that was rendered with respect to the property up on Cotton Street and Adams Street. Basically, the city solicitor indicated that there is no use variance for existing buildings. The proposed change to the zoning ordinance in front of you addresses that issue. It does provide an opportunity to use an existing building that is no longer suited for its original intended use for other permitted uses with a special permit. Clearly, my client does support this initiative. She intends to develop the property, part of the Rockwell Pond project, but she needs a mechanism to be able to do so. We have tried several different approaches, and this is one that if the City Council were to approve, would allow my client to make use of that property. We certainly recommend that you give this favorable endorsement to the City Council.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone else wish to speak in favor of this petition?
My name is Jim Whitney, 50 Old Mill Road. I'll just stick to on record, being in favor of this petition. I think this is something that's there was a use variance that used to be in the zoning that got left out, whether it got left out on purpose or not, we don't know, but we do need an avenue to get these buildings like the one I have on Lancaster Street back up and going, because we just have no way to use it, as Tom spoke about. And the sooner the better. I mean, it doesn't matter where the thing ends up as long as there's a special permit granting authority somewhere, some sort of an avenue to be able to bring this to someone to get these buildings back on track. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have anyone else wishes to speak in favor? Anyone else that wishes to speak in favor? Do I have anyone that wishes to speak in opposition? Yes, ma'am.
I actually have a couple of questions as well.
Sure.
My name is Gail Ciamoto.
Please stand up and...
My first question is, my understanding is that the sponsor of this petition is Mr. Cataldo, the building inspector.
Yes.
As a member of the public, since he's a sponsor of it, I'd like to hear from him as to why he thinks this is appropriate. If it was simply done by 10 registered voters, they could have done it on their own. But the fact that he's the sponsor of the petition, I think he owes it to the public to come to this meeting and speak to why he believes it's an appropriate thing to do.
Yeah, he's the maker of the petition. It's up to his prerogative. All we do is we have our hearing, we make a recommendation to the city council. I think he's already appeared before the city council, and I'm sure he'll appear with them again, so he probably figured he'd already been there, and the maker, so just...
I understand your position. I just would say he's more than just a sponsor of the petition. He's an appointed city official. And I think he owes it to the people that he represents, not just the other signatories of the petition. So that's just one point for your consideration.
Okay.
And secondly, there is a mechanism for use variances now. I'm not clear if whether it's been left out of the zoning, but it can be put back in the zoning, as opposed to finding yet another way to go around, whether it's mixed use or whatever you want to call it for that. There's a process to go through. The fact that it's been clamped down on, maybe there's a reason for that. And to come up with a whole other scheme and way to get around that process seems to be unfair. And if it was left out of the zoning, my suggestion would be to go back and put it into the zoning and continue to go back to the ZBA to get variances the way it's always been done in the past.
And I think this is what this does. It gives it, you can either go to the ZBA or to the city council. It doesn't go to the building inspector. It has to, as this is written, right now it's calling for the zoning board of appeals, and they would have to make the determination. Okay? So he would turn it down that it doesn't fit the zoning. It would then go to the zoning board of appeals. There have been some discussion, and we'll discuss this later, on whether it should be the zoning board of appeals or the city council. And so it may be determined, but that's also up to the city council, whether they want to take that on and be the granting authority for that, because they have the final say on this ordinance and whether it gets approved or not.
Well, my understanding is the way the petition is drafted, it's to go to the ZBA. And I would suggest that if it's now being changed to go in front of the city council, that it needs to be redrafted and the process needs to start over.
But it can be, that type of change, it can be done as an amendment by the city council.
Well, I think in terms of public hearings and things like that, when you have a petition in front of people, it's either the ZBA or the city council.
Well, I'm not going to get into that issue. Thank you, ma'am.
Chairman, Jim Lantiani, Leominster City Councilor. Mr. Cataldo is not the sponsor of that. That has now been changed with the people who were concerned for that petition, because, as she noted, he is a city official, and so I believe that he's amended it and also amended it for the city council approval for that petition.
I understand that. What I have here is the original. Okay? Do I have any other questions or comments? Do I have any other questions or comments? Any questions from the board?
If either Jim, Tom, or
You're back there, George, can you answer the question? Can you give me an example of and I'm only asking, I'm more out of curiosity, can you give me an example of a building in Leominster that falls into this?
I'll give you one example, 557 Lancaster Street. The building that was recently renovated down by Union Products.
Bill Laurie Press Building?
No, L'Oreal Press
Okay,
Building.
yeah.
It was renovated, and we've had dry cleaners, some computer stores, trying to, a phone company, and they wanted to go in there, nice visibility, standalone building, and they would go to the building inspector. He said, I'm sorry, it's zone industrial, you can't have commercial use there, and there's no other way for you to continue. That's one example, three
Okay.
examples.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get a picture in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just, so the only, Mr. Watts, am I correct saying that the petition is for simply 12.5 under abandonment, that paragraph
Right.
would be the only change?
It's under abandoned, it's only abandoned buildings that are...
Okay, well, I see it now, I see it now, 12.5.1, then there's other changes, because obviously the parking comes into play, and
Correct.
I just want to know how much is going to be affected, that's what I'm asking.
Well, I have a question. Since Mr. Cataldo is not a sponsor, just for the record, could we reveal who is the sponsor of this petition?
There was a list of 10 voters. Got it over there.
The lawyer. This is just attached to the copy of the petition.
Yeah. Did we get it? Oh, we don't have it here. Should be in the file with us. Why don't you read them on, Carol?
Can you read?
Yeah.
Single folder.
Carl DeMassa, Jim Whitney, Nicholas Pirro, Randy Bigelow, Charles Bigelow, Barbara Bigelow, Lynn Bigelow, Thomas McNamara, Barry Cosimi, Pat Whitney, and Ed Cataldo. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's the number 11, so you don't really need him.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. The only question that I have, and I want, looking for clarification, we'll go through it, is this directed to views listed in Article 2, Section 2226. Well, I'm not sure how clear that is, because 2226 is, this is 2226 is the table of uses.
The table. Right.
Okay? But I'm not sure what he means there.
Is that Article 3?
Other uses listed, 2226, yeah.
Oh, Article 2.
Article 2, yeah. Don't have an answer on that one.
Article 2.
To me, that means anything that says yes in the commercial district and says no in the industrial district could be given a special permit to go in the industrial district.
Okay, maybe we want to spell that
I
out
don't know
or make
if
that...
I don't know if that is spelled out. I'm not proposing that.
No, I'm saying is that
Clarification.
that could be a question that when we refer this to the city council, that should be clarified. Okay, because it's pretty much, the way it reads here, in Article 2 section, when I looked at it earlier, I made a similar assumption that you did, Mr. Millett, but it's an assumption, and assumptions get us in trouble.
Mr. Souza, just
Mr. Watts.
looking at that language, I would suggest that the use would be any use that would be otherwise permitted in a residence, business, commercial, or an industrial district, either as a matter of right or special permit, could be used for the property in question.
Yeah, reading it looks like it's wide open.
It
It's
is.
everything.
I'd say it's wide open, but then your balances on that, or it is a special permit, and the planning board has site plan review. So you've got two checks and balances with respect to the regulation of the use of the
I just
property.
didn't know if we wanted to include the residential ones in there,
Oh, absolutely.
okay? But all it is a question that we'll have answered as the city council finalizes. That's all it is from us. Yes, Ms. O'Mill?
I just want a point of clarification from you. My understanding of mixed use is that there's already a mechanism to convert industrial land to commercial use.
This is not mixed use. This would take into account, this is not mixed use because an industrial land could have residential uses. And in mixed use has specific uses that are allowed in industrial. Those uses in industrial do not include any residential
So this
in the mixed
petition is
use.
beyond mixed use. It's
That is
actually
correct. This is not, has nothing to do with mixed use. This is strictly abandoned building. Mixed use was designed for primarily open property, okay, new buildings, open industrial land,
Well, that's
and for
actually
new
not in the
buildings.
mixed use.
What's that?
That is restricted to open land is not actually in the
No,
mixed
it's
use
not, that's not
ordinance.
defined, but I mean, that's what it was, some of the intention at the time. So maybe that has to be clarified also, but at the same time, it has been used in other cases in the city where the mixed use did come into play, where it was a strictly industrial to uses that were commercial in nature, in general, but not residential. This opens it up to also include residential. So I just wanted to define that it does, so it goes like a step beyond that.
So I just want to be clear, so then it would take industrial land and then it could be used for either commercial or residential
That is, it would
without
be
any,
like taking an old...
without any limitation.
The limitations are that you have to go to the city council or the ZBA, and for initial special permit, you still have to come, in all cases, you would have to come to the planning board for site plan approval.
But there's no limitations built into the ordinance. In other
Not
words,
at
it's
this
not,
point.
industrial could become 100% retail and commercial. Or it could become 100%
It's a
residential.
specific building. Let's say, as Mr. Watts is representing today, and one of the things that the city is being recognized for is Rockwell Village. Rockwell Village, we have a number of very old factories that are pretty deplorable condition. The chance of them ever being used for industrial uses again are nil and none. So you have two options. The first option is to go in and tear the building down and build a new one, and that's not going to happen in that type of area. And number two would be to have some kind of ordinance where you could rehab or rehabilitate those buildings. In most cases, the best use of that building, especially in Rockaway Village where it's within walking distance of the city, and where we're trying to develop those types of areas in the city, you could have some very nice, high-end, high-scale, middle, moderate income, nice condos and apartments that would bring people to the downtown area. So it makes it a very nice fit and gives us some real nice options. So all we're looking here is, by doing this, to make sure we have it right, that we have the options to do something like that, but also to have the checks and balances in place that we know what we're doing. Okay, and the right people are involved.
Let me give you an example. Say you have a 50,000 square foot industrial building that sits on 11 acres of land, and you want to turn that into something that's commercial and retail.
It had to be non-conforming to begin with, though.
Right, it's industrial. It's industrial now, it's abandoned now, it sits on 11 acres of land. Is the person, if you get that change to say commercial, is it limited to that one building, or does that entire 11 acres now become
It'd be that use, it'd be the use of that building.
merely that building, so you can't put up
Well,
other
the
buildings
building,
on that land?
that building that's associated with that.
There's
Okay, I
one.
mean, because well, you're gonna need parking.
Okay, say there's one that exists, it's an abandoned factory.
Right.
50,000 square feet, but it's surrounded by quite a bit of other land on which nothing sits now. If it now becomes commercial, is it limited to that one building?
No, it'd be only the building.
So only the building, the land itself does not
No, the
become...
building, the building, it would have to be associated with the building, because you'd have to have parking, roads, right-of-ways, and egresses, and snow storage.
I'm
and
talking
all
about the
this.
remaining 11 acres. Can you then put up other is it now
Not
commercial?
without other permits.
But it would now be commercial.
But you have to keep in mind that that building had to first have been, had to at some point have been non-conforming to begin with. So when you say it's if you're calling it an industrial building, that means it's an industrial building in an industrial zone. If it's always been an industrial building in an industrial zone, this section does not apply, because it had to be non-conforming to begin with. But if it had been, is that correct? I mean, it can't be
No,
any...
it's not, no, it's not.
But it says over here, any non-conforming use. Any non-conforming use.
I think the
We're
misconception...
talking about abandoned buildings.
Right, for any existing structure, a use is what it's put in place for. So if you had an industrial zone building, and you wanted to have a commercial use, a residential use, go into that building, the user, whether it's the entire building or just a portion of the building, that user would have to go for a special permit to use that section of the building that still stays industrial, to use that for commercial for an amount of time. Now, if that people move out, in 5 years, their lease is up, that building automatically reverts back to industrial, and the next person that goes in has to get a permit to do the same thing over again.
That's correct. So it's only a use variance for that building, for the building alone.
Right.
Anything else on the land would
Right.
be other
Absolutely
permits.
nothing.
I want to be clear about
And
that.
how do you determine abandonment?
Well, it's not abandonment, it's existing
It has
structure.
to be abandoned for 2 years in order for this to kick in.
See, that's not my interpretation of this. This is, because I'm reading this as saying any non-conforming use,
Uses.
well, I'm reading straight from the ordinance, any non-conforming use of a conforming structure and lot which has been abandoned for a continuous period of 2 years or more shall not be used again except for a conforming use. So my interpretation of that is, that's why I asked to get an example, because if you have an industrial building, if you have a building in an industrial zone, it had been used as industry, then they got, well, no, I guess that wouldn't work. It was used as something else, I guess, as not as industry.
And then
Then it went out of business, and 2 years has passed, then Jim Whitney wants to buy that building. According to the now current ordinance, he can't change it. He has to use it as an industrial building.
That's correct.
Correct.
That's right. Right. And the amendment is simply to add that you can use it as a non-conforming use by special permit of the city council.
That's correct.
Only if it was non-conforming before and then abandoned.
That's correct. So that's why I'm trying to answer Gail's question by saying the first thing is it had to have been non-conforming.
By what, being used illegally for some other purpose?
No, not
How
illegal.
does it become...
Non-conformance is not illegal.
If that's the case, Carol, that's the way it's
Grandfather, what I'm saying,
interpreted. And it needs to be changed, because the thing that we were trying to get was the use variance like it was listed in there before in the 87 zoning, where if you had an existing structure that you wanted to put a different use in, then you would go for a special permit in front of the zoning board of appeals.
I don't think this is doing that for
See,
you.
you want it to be just any abandoned building.
Not
Yes,
necessarily abandoned.
not abandoned, just any
Well, not
non-conforming.
any building
An
that's not in
industrial
use.
If you,
No, go ahead.
if you go, and I'm thinking of the people that have gotten the use variances right now, they know of in industrial zones, High Country Workwear.
Yes.
That's industrial, they came in for a use variance. And that wasn't an abandoned building, it was a used building. That's what this was intended to be.
Well, to tie this proposal to the abandonment provisions of the zoning ordinance is the wrong way to go about this. It
Yeah.
causes too much confusion. I suggest that this whole thing be given leave to withdraw and start it over again.
I tend to agree with you. It doesn't seem to, where it's in the abandoned building, they're leaving a lot of questions. I think that we don't
City
have,
solicitor is the one that wrote this. So
doesn't make it right.
that was the intent of this, though. That's
Yeah.
what we're explaining right now.
I think
it doesn't belong
I think we need a second legal
agree.
opinion.
Yeah.
we don't disagree with the intent. Okay? What we're looking at here is we're having a question on the vehicle, because it comes in the abandoned buildings area.
Yeah.
So, as I see it, first, well, in fact, even the property that you have is not abandoned. It's being used as a warehouse. Okay?
It had been, it no longer is. When we
Yeah.
purchased it, yes, they were,
Well, yeah, okay, let's have one speaker, but, okay, I'm not too long ago, it was being used as a warehouse.
yes.
As the pure definition of this is, the warehouse would have to be out, that building would have to be not used for 2 years and abandoned, and then this would come in. Okay? And it brings it into the abandoned building. We're questioning whether it should be in the abandoned building area and not in another section. I'm not sure. Just getting involved with this tonight, and I did read it, and that's why we do have the questions. I haven't had a lot of opportunity to spend to say, where is the right place that this should be? And the abandoned building area doesn't seem to be the right area. So that's the type of questions that I have, and what Mr. Millette said is, with these questions, is that maybe the city council wants to form a committee, or somebody wants to look at this and again sit down with the city solicitor to take and determine that, what is the right area and the right wording and get this done properly. Not that it's done, not that we want to stop it, we just want to do it so it's done properly so there isn't a problem.
High Country Workwear wasn't an abandoned building.
No.
And then, coming under the definition of 12.5, is it?
Yeah.
I mean, it just talks pure abandoned buildings, which we know is not the intent.
How did that become a non-conforming use? They got a use
They're
variance?
probably gonna use it.
They could
So
use
why
for
can't you do that
ZBA. You can't.
Because it's gone, it got taken out of the zoning.
Got taken out of zoning, so it's supposed to say ZBA can't do it.
ZBA can't
In
do
the
it.
87 zoning book, it's
Contested by state law and
That's what
precedents of
everybody
the law
did
many
for years.
times, yeah. That's right.
And I think when mixed use got written, it just got left out. Nobody can figure out why it was left out.
No, I don't,
We don't disagree.
State law.
And it was perfect because it was a special permit granting authority. So every use had to come for a special permit. Everybody had to have a public hearing, no matter who the user was that wanted to go in the smallest portion of the building, which was great because, I mean, what more control can you have over what's going to go in a zoning area than having a public hearing for every user, not an entire change for the building, each individual user. And that's
yeah,
what-
if you had 5 users in the building, all 5 needed a permit.
Yeah, and as soon as they move out, it goes back to the underlying zone.
That makes sense for commercial property, if you're gonna use it for commercial, if you're gonna have a bank go in or something, but if you're talking about taking an industrial building and converting it into residential, does that mean if it's an apartment and someone moves out, it now reverts back to
No, you would
industrial?
take that as an entirety, because the building, the building itself would have to change to be made it into apartments, because now you have to put in kitchens and
Right, but that-
bedrooms and living rooms, and now the use becomes a residence
But
use.
then to be clear, it might revert back to industrial if you use it for commercial, but once it goes to residential, it in fact isn't just a change of use for the building, it's a change of zoning from industrial to residential land.
That's right, spot zoning by the Board of Appeals, and that's why this should be by the city council if it goes through,
Yeah.
not by the Board of Appeals.
Well, according to, I see your point, Gail, because it says here, and again, I don't know if this is the right area for this to go under, but under 12.5, it says any non-conforming use or of a conforming structure and lot. So it would be if that lot is, if the lot is owned by one person and it's 50 acres,
That's right.
But you're saying the lot would
The whole
change as
lot,
well?
in terms of use, the way this is the way this is written with this addition, I think,
Yeah,
the answer to your question would be yes.
Well, then the explanation that we're getting from the sponsors is they're saying that it will, once the person moves out, once their lease is up in 5 years, it reverts back to industrial.
That's correct.
Well, that's not what you're saying. You're saying that the lot changes.
For the time period.
For that time period.
But that's why we don't think it belongs under the abandonment
Right.
section.
Right.
But
We believe there should be a vehicle to allow it,
Right, but I'm
but
saying,
maybe not under
I
that.
think it just needs
but it's
I
like
think
for
it just needs its
residential,
own
it doesn't
section.
revert
Yeah.
back.
What abandonment is saying is that if you have a variance and you stop,
Subsection?
Well, he puts it under
after 2 years, the variance is void.
12.5.
Puts it under
So you
12.5.
can't move
Right, but
back in and start
they
up.
want to create a new subsection under 12.5,
But
not to add to it.
Yeah, but it's still not, it's still under abandonment though.
I just think there's a lot of...
see, whenever you get into an abandonment, you say, then you have, that's your subject, is abandoned buildings. Then you have subsets of that subject that refer to that.
Yeah.
But everything going up to that refers to abandoned buildings.
Well, I think everybody knows what our intent is, so wherever it needs to end up, it needs to end up, but that's the
Yeah,
intent.
and I think it's just the mechanics.
Yeah,
That's all we're talking here is the mechanics.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any opposition to what you're trying to do, as far as I can tell there isn't. It's just what is the proper mechanics, and we're not sure at this point how to achieve the proper mechanics. Okay? And that's what we're gonna have to discuss when we get to our part of the meeting, is how do we achieve the proper mechanics and get the proper information to the city council so that they can act accordingly.
yeah, Eddie's the one that had the discussions with Kathy Degnos, I think she's the one that he'd spoken with. And so, I wish that he was here, but I think that he was under the impression that we weren't even gonna have a hearing on this tonight.
Oh, no, this has been listed for some time.
Yeah, but
And
I
he
think
gets
that
a
there was-
copy, no, he gets a copy
I
of
think that
this.
there was an amendment, that he had put an amendment in to have this go in front of the city council instead of,
Right,
The Board of
he's
Appeals?
changing it from the Board of Appeals to the city council.
right, he thought that that was gonna be in, having to go back to the city council and get,
Well, see, we never
That's the
notified.
case, I suggest that we cut this hearing short, because things are going to change, and,
We never got notified of that.
I think that's the reason why he wasn't here tonight.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then, I don't
He could
know.
explain it better.
well, let's stop wasting our time, we had a nice discussion.
Okay.
Move to close the hearing.
Does anyone else want to add anything in? Anything new? Okay, I have a motion to close the hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. A 7 o'clock hearing. Public information meeting for Lascati Development Corporation, 24 Walden Court, Leominster. Site plan modification to the approved Orchard Hill Park plan located off Harvard Street.
No, on top of it. John, I'm pretty sure. I went through on the floor.
Go ahead.
I have one.
Now, this is new. Yeah, but this is changed.
It's on window writing out with news reports.
That's December 1. December 20.
Yeah, I do.
The trees are more.
Everybody got
Yeah, that's... Is that the one? No, I was looking for the one from Mitch Gill. That, the thing that you had. That one. That's all right. I guess we got another. Well, I gotta get someplace to get buried.
No, that's not from him, that's from the others.
Okay, can we get everybody in here? Looks like we got them all in. Okay, Mr. Liscotti.
One member, Mr. Chairman, would you mind if we waited for one?
Yeah, we'll wait for him to come in.
Thank you.
I didn't realize he had snuck out on me.
There's one lady that just thought she should sell it on the view and stuff, and that one.
Oh, I have them. I'm always prepared.
I'm definitely, that's what it is.
December 1st version? One more?
No, the first
Oh, I think. Yeah, you should have.
Is there an extra packet over there? I didn't get
This one? One of those. Another one?
Okay, we can get started. Okay.
Chairman, members of the board, for the record, my name is Greg Liscotti, Scotty Development Corp. With me this evening is Taylor Dowdy, from project engineer from VHB, Bill Scully from MS Transportation, and John Scribner, who's my project manager.
Can you speak up, please, because it's kind of noisy down here.
Sure. We're here tonight for a public informational hearing for minor modification to my Orchard Hill Park project. So I'm just briefly going to run through these, the changes that I went through at the December meeting. And we have the traffic guys here. I think that's probably going to be the main discussion this evening, but I'll just run through the changes. First of all, the site. Let me put this back. This is the site plan that's currently approved. It's 310,729 square feet, and it consists of 6 retail stores along with 3 restaurant pads and the Target Center on the opposite end. We're reducing this down to 3 stores, basically combining an area of A through C and then sliding those down into this area here. And the total square footage would now be reduced down to 307,867 square feet. The overall parking for the site has been reduced from 1,475 spaces to 1,467, while the number of required spaces changed from 1,331 to 1,321. And this number still exceeds the Leominster zoning ordinance by 146 spaces. Where the changes took place, and I'll show you the overlay, basically the Coles building is a larger or deeper building, so we extended the building out into this area here, and we slightly narrowed up the parking field here. This retail F was in essence eliminated, and we added the parking that was lost here onto the side of retail F. So I'll just show you how this looks on. Basically, this black outline is the outline of Kohl's with the loading in the rear, and then this would be retail now, retail B and C, with the addition of parking field to the right-hand side. So that's basically what has happened with the site plan. The entrances here and here, the restaurant pads all remain the same. The truck access around the loading docks are still all in the rear of the property. Nothing changed at all on this side of the target side of the project. I went before the Conservation Commission back in December, just to show what was going on, and they had no problems with the plan as presented. So before I turn this over, I want to update the board on a couple of things. They may or may not know the interchange at exit 34, the Harvard Street interchange, is now open, and it will be finalized in the spring with the final coat of pavement, but it is operational now. And as of this morning, I acquired the Adam Young property, so I officially own the property, and we'll be starting the road construction this spring. So with that, I guess, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if there's any other specific questions for the site itself. I'll be happy to answer them, and we have the traffic gentleman here as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would you like to give us a little update on where you stand with traffic and what the changes were and what kind of impact there was?
Right, for the record, my name is Bill Scully with MS Transportation Systems. At the December meeting, we began discussion of the proposed Phase 1 site plan modification, which, as Mr. Scully just outlined, it's essentially combining 3 stores into one, reduction in size of the floor area by approximately 2,600 square feet. And at that time, we had presented a trip summary of the revised plan, as well as we gave you an updated status report on the mitigation plan for Phase 1. Since the last meeting, the city requested its consultant to review the traffic implications of the change, and we've been working with your consultant and getting information up to him for that review, more detailed information and calculations and the backup calculations and data, which I'll distribute in a minute. We've also seen or heard through reports various pieces of information about this modification, of whether it's going to add traffic or reduce traffic. And tonight I'd like to just, I'll end up with showing and stating emphatically that it'll be exactly, basically exactly the same as the Phase 1 analysis and the numbers that we talked about back about a year ago. And over the course of the day, we may have an actual reduction. Small, but with a reduction in size, we would anticipate potentially a reduction in the traffic. The initial, just for some background, some of you may be very familiar with everything, some may not. The initial studies were done in 2001. They were early planning level type studies where the overall site plan was being conceived, and we were starting to go through the state review process, the environmental impact report with NEPA, Mass Highway Review, and at that time the level of detail that we had was certainly appropriate for those particular studies. As we got into 2003, more engineering had started to take place on the site, more market analysis, more understanding really what you were going to be able to do, and as a result the project became more defined. And that's what the board reviewed in 2003 for Phase 1. The changes that were done in 2003 and the resulting traffic effects of those changes were presented to the board at the time of the Phase 1 hearings, and how they did or did not vary much from the EIR in November 2001 report, and they certainly did not change the findings, the conclusions, and the recommendations. During the course of discussions with the board at that time for Phase 1, we relied on the November 2001 report and analysis. We showed that the board, that the updated numbers didn't change anything significant. And more importantly, during that Phase 1 review, as you may recall, the mitigation program for Phase 1 was discussed, I'd say exhaustively. That did change a bit from the EIR. It became much more detailed, probably more extensive, and defined in item-by-item actions. The analysis in 2001 did include full build-out of the whole project, not just Phase 1. It was a 5-year projection, including build-out of this project as well as background growth, which included an additional 350,000 square feet of development in the industrial park. It included the new school at the time, which was not open. It also included some residential growth and then just general background growth, I believe at about 2% per year. The Phase 1 mitigation, just going to, even since the last meeting, I just did a quick update on the status. And you can see just from the table,
Thank you.
there's a number of items that were required by the project. Proponent agreed or committed himself to implementing them. And this included, there will be a signal at the intersection of Harvard and Orchard Hill Park Drive. The design plans are done, and it will be under construction in the spring, open in time for the opening of the project. Route 2 interchange, you just heard, is at least partially open, the westbound off-ramp, and expected to be fully operational very soon. The Pioneer Drive extension, which was not an actual item in terms of the mitigation for the project, it was an element that we all believed was going to be done for the project. You've heard is now under the applicant's control, and construction will resume this spring and complete that connection. There is a post-opening monitoring program for Phase 1, scheduled for 6 months after the complete Phase 1 opening. That post-opening monitoring includes at the site, it includes at the intersections on both ends, Orchard Hill Park Drive and Pioneer Drive. It also includes, as the board requested, after hearing public comment, it includes looking at Prospect Street at Main Street and seeing if any timing changes are necessary after Phase 1 is up and running. The Harvard Street program, we have 3 locations along Harvard Street that will be redesigned, reconstructed. The design is complete, and in the spring they will go under construction. This is the intersection. That's actually where Harvard ties into Stagecoach Road and comes out to Prospect Street. This intersection will be reconfigured, eliminating the...
Again, people in the audience can't see that. Can you, if you're going to have those, can you come over with you? So when you get into something like that, then we'd like to have people see what you're talking about.
This is the intersection of Prospect Street and Stagecoach Road, Scenic Drive. Right now, it's a lot of pavement out there, a lot of movements, fairly uncontrolled, fast. You can come up Stagecoach and go straight through onto Prospect. Very little area to turn, and it poses a number of conflicts as well as motorists not stopping. During the review process of Phase 1, this whole corridor became really a separate study almost, and we went out there in the field with city officials. We analyzed various options, presenting them at hearings of phase one as well as neighborhood meetings. This intersection will now be simplified into a simple T. We've made it a little bit wider at the end of Stagecoach to accommodate the school buses, which we observed had some trouble making the turn. We've tightened up some other areas. The turn from Prospect onto Stagecoach will be tightened for a slow speed maneuver. There'll be some additional landscaping and trees placed in that area. Sidewalks will be reconstructed as needed with any adjustment to the handicap ramps done in association with that. Second area was a Stagecoach intersection with Harvard Street. Down a little bit. This is that area that's very wide open, pavement, and we're basically defining the intersection, bringing Stagecoach, this section of Stagecoach, to a T. Little waiting area if kids have to wait for the school buses. Big landscape area with trees and fairly easy maintenance. Treatment over there to be stop controlled on Stagecoach. All of this work within the right-of-way. And the third intersection along the street is down at White Street. And here we're just trying to guide motorists a little bit better down along Harvard, around that curve. Go to a more traditional type of design at the end of White Street, entering on one side of the island, exiting on the other. Again, signage as appropriate. The signage, I should mention that on Prospect Street will be improved. It will guide people down to Pioneer Drive, and people unfamiliar with the area, instead of using this way down into either Route 2 or Orchard Park, we will be directing them with more appropriate and more visible signage to push them down Prospect Street to Pioneer Drive. Other actions along Harvard Street as part of the mitigation will be to transition from the improved section down at Orchard Hill Drive up into the older section of Harvard Street as we approach White Street. A little bit of striping, signage, pavement definition, edge definition, and some additional signage along the street to, again, remind motorists to drive with care and caution them in terms of speed. Another action that was recommended and committed to as part of the mitigation program was Prospect Street, treatment off Prospect Street. And one of the items included conducting a traffic calming study along the whole section of Prospect Street. And we went from Main down to the town line. In conducting the calming study, we were defining, this is the town line over here, Leominster, Lunenburg, Pioneer Drive, Lancaster Ave, and Lunenburg, and along this corridor, outlined in red, goes up to Main Street, and that's the Prospect Street corridor. As part of that study, we inventoried pretty much everything along the street. We had some data from the past in terms of traffic data. We had truck information, we had speed data. There was a lot of concerns that travel speeds along Prospect Street were higher than desirable. A lot of truck traffic. Unsafe to walk along or cross the street. The new school was coming in, and again, at the time of 2001 studies, it was not built. At the time of the Prospect Street calming study, it was up and running and occupied. We looked at sidewalk conditions. We looked at every street along the roadway in terms of visibility, traffic control, and ultimately we ended up with a series of recommendations, some of which are highlighted on this map that's in the report. The report was dated March 2004. So that part of the commitment was completed. It was presented to the traffic committee. The actions endorsed. During the course of that study, again, we had another 1 or 2 meetings, public meetings at night that people along the corridor were informed of and attended, and we presented various options. We talked about issues and concerns out there, and then used all that information to try to develop a program where we could really, it's really designed to enhance safety along that corridor, make people feel more comfortable who reside out there. Some of the actions include
Bill,
instituting...
you just speak up a little bit more as you speak. I know it's tough, but...
Some of the actions that are recommended are what we call high visibility pedestrian crossings. We've outlined, I believe, 3 or 4 locations along the corridor over time to have these, what I call high visibility crossings. One of them was required and committed to as part of the program. It is in as of today. It was built in the last month or so. We are going through some construction inspection in the next week to finalize everything. That's just a picture of it. I don't know if there's enough in there. What that included was flashing beacons to be actuated by someone who wants to cross the street. It included putting in what's called an imprint type of crossing to give yourself a little different texture, different color, a little bit more visible along the street. And then we also instituted a different median. Instead of just a close double yellow stripe along the street, we went to breaking up that line a little bit, put in a flush median, different color, more grayish, granite type looking, widens out to about 3 or 4 feet. And again, the intent is to begin to narrow the travel lanes and ultimately have some effect on the travel speeds through the area, but as important, or more importantly, someone hits the button, the flashing beacons warn motorists 500-700 feet away if someone in the walkway to cross. This is the first one. It was put in at a little over $30,000 cost, and it's again part of fulfilling the Phase 1 program. Another series of actions recommended as part of the study was to put in a series of speed monitoring devices. You've seen a couple of them maybe on Main Street at the school, where you see speed zone signs with a radar detector, measures your speed, tells you how fast you're going. If you go 5 miles over the speed limit as posted, it flashes. And again, it's sort of a passive reminder to the driver of what you are doing, and once it starts flashing, again, the hope is to change the behavior and reduce the speed. We recommended a series of them, 3 per direction. The proponent was committed to providing 1 of the devices, and in fact, through discussions with the city staff, agreed to providing 2. They've been purchased and waiting this spring to be installed we're not sure exactly which are going to be the first 2 locations, but my guess is it's going to be probably something down on the approaching the school, and then probably up here approaching the first crosswalk. And there were a number of other actions, either improving visibility or making sure we've got stop signs, stop bars at certain intersections, sidewalk where they don't exist to continue them, sidewalks where they do exist and are in not as good a shape as other locations to get them repaired. We did talk about the intersection of Prospect Street and Lawrence. That came up during the studies in 2001. It came up for discussion in 2003. And then in all the neighborhood meetings it came up as well. Lawrence Street right now carries a lot of volume coming up from Nashua. And the last plan I want to show you is just the intersection at Orchard Hill Park Drive and Harvard Street. This is the final design plan. It's had review by the traffic committee. Final comments were taken into account and modified. This is Orchard Hill Park Drive. This is Harvard Street. It's proposed to have, as you're coming from Prospect, from that direction, proposed to have a left turn lane on Harvard Street to allow a turn into Orchard Hill Park Drive. 2 lanes on the approach coming down to Harvard, 1 for left, 1 will be designated for a right turn movement. 1 through lane per direction, and then on the approach from the Route 2 area, it will widen out a little bit to allow for a right turn, wide radius movement onto the driveway. So that has, as I said, been approved at the traffic committee level. We are expecting to begin construction later this spring with that. The intersection with this design, signal timing, full build-out of the park, full additional build-out of the industrial park, and any shift in traffic coming down through from the industrial park. We are anticipating a level service C during the evening peak hour on a Friday at this location, and level service B on a Saturday midday. And that's at full build under phase 1 only. We're talking about at least those levels of service, if not a little bit better. The matter at hand has to do with the change from the 3 stores to Kohl's, a reduction of about 2,600 square feet. We provided at the December meeting a summary of the traffic from those changes. Since that meeting, we added the detailed calculations, checked everything. There's a couple of minor changes, but nothing substantial. I brought copies. I believe you asked for a comparison.
Yes, right.
Of the.
Thank you. We already have
Should have it.
those.
I think we got those, yep.
All right, now I'll put a couple of copies for the file of the detailed calculations on how we come up with those numbers. Just in that table, it compares an approved phase 1 trips, looked at the weekday and the PM peak hour, and what we call modified phase 1 trips. And as you can see, the weekday, the 24-hour period, changes a little bit. It goes down by about 75, 76 or so trips over the course of the day. The peak hour is very similar. In the table, it's exactly. The numbers, I'd like to say one thing in terms of the procedure, and I think Mr. Aben may talk about it a little bit more detail. When we went in and updated these numbers, we refined the procedure a little bit. There's a couple different ways that you can forecast traffic. One is simply just taking, in this case, phase 1, retail center, X feet, and plug in the formula and you come up with a number. In this case, we'd have, instead of 310,000 square feet, which was the phase 1 approved, we'd have about 307,300 or 400, in that range. Alternatively, what we did is we took the retail portion, we took the restaurants, which were pad locations out on the street, and we also took into account some level of the existing industrial park, just to get a sense of there's going to be some traffic that basically becomes generated between industrial park, restaurants, retail center, industrial park, retail center, that never leave Orchard Hill Park Drive or Pioneer Drive. It all stays internal In the November 2001 report, we talked about that. We said, well, you're talking probably about a 5 to 6% capture of traffic. And it was very preliminary. The procedure's been a little bit more refined by the Institute of Transportation Engineers since November 2001. And in this procedure in the last month or so, we took that approach. Let's find out what we had, and that's why the numbers are a little bit different. I could have, like I said, taken 307.4 and run them with one, and I would have ended up with about 1,320 trips as opposed to 1,327 trips. I would have ended up with 14,028 as opposed to 14,026. So the procedure ended up, in fact, it made us even feel a little comfortable where it verified some of the other methods that the Institute allows us to use. But by using this method, it starts to give us a handle of how much traffic really is going to stay within the project area and not get onto the external trips. The last thing is the difference between 1,327 trips or 1,325 trips when we had 310,000 square feet, or even if it was in the EIR November 2001 for the retail only, it says 1,297 trips. It's not going to make any difference in terms of operations coming in or out of the site at the Harvard Street Orchard Hill Park Drive intersection or any of the other study intersections as the traffic disperses. The level service C and B under full build out at the end here is going to remain C or B. 10, 15 vehicle strips is not going to change that operating condition. In terms of the numbers, I mean, we're low enough where you could add a lot more traffic before you ever change the level of service there. So the questions with this site plan modification that I see from a traffic point of view is, will it significantly change the traffic numbers, and will it require different mitigation that's already been approved and committed to by the applicant? And I say it does not to both of those questions. And I'll end there. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. I don't have any at this time, but stay tuned, as they say. Do we have anyone else with you that wants to make a comment? Okay.
We're all set, Mr. Chairman, unless there's any questions.
Okay. What we did do, the city, or I had requested that our traffic consultant, Mr. Aben, take a look at these figures and to make his comments to verify what's been presented to us today. Could you give us your report?
Sure. I believe you've gotten a copy of this report that was dated today. And just for the record for everybody, my name is Michael Abend of Abend Associates in Burlington, and we were hired by the planning board, by the planning department, with funds provided by the applicant to review the study last year when it was filed originally for approval by the board, and to review this information. What we focused on, Mr. Scully updated everybody on the mitigation. We did not look at that at all. We didn't check where everything stood. That wasn't what we were asked to do. We were asked to focus on that difference that was highlighted on that plan between the 6 stores or Kohl's plus 3 stores. And I'll tell you right off, the impact of that change is negligible on traffic off-site. The information that was presented by Mr. Scully originally, which did not account for the interconnection of trips between one land use and another within the park and within the Phase 1 development itself, was an approach that I would have taken at that time as well. The information was used, it's not used to fine-tune exactly how much traffic is going to go in and out, because from one day to the next the volumes are going to vary depending on the weather, depending on the season, depending on the sales. All those things affect how much traffic enters or exits a retail or commercial development on a day-to-day basis. What that study originally was done to do was figure out what kind of improvements were necessary around the project whether or not the access plan would adequately accommodate the cars that were expected to come and go, what the trucks that were expected to come and go, etc. So that's what we focus on when we do a traffic study. The change in the amount of square footage, a reduction of 2,600 square feet, or a change from 3 stores to 1 store, as the case is here, don't affect that broad brush purpose of that study. In other words, whether we need 2 lanes or 3 or 4 lanes on a given road isn't going to be affected. That decision isn't going to be affected by the small amount of traffic that might be affected by this change in the project. So that's simply the impact of this change, a reduction in 2,600 square feet, doesn't change the conclusions of the original study or the need for mitigation that's been proposed previously. In terms of how the analysis was done and why there was a more detailed analysis prepared at this time, when you're first working on a project like this, you don't know exactly which retailers are going to come in. You don't know exactly which commercial activities are going to be, how much office there might be, which tenants will fill the restaurant spaces, etc. So you use some general numbers because that's what's appropriate. As you get closer, you have better numbers. So what they did was they presented those better numbers. It would be akin to when you're leaving the office to come home and you call your significant other and they say, when are you going to be home? You say a half hour. Well, if you're 2/3 of the way home and they call you, you're going to say, I'll be home in 7 or 8 minutes, or something like that. So that's essentially what they did. They provided a more accurate estimate because they were closer to knowing exactly who's going to fill which box. I believe that may have complicated the overall review process, but what it was doing was providing additional information which actually confirmed the original information from the original study, that was a very reasonable estimate back in 2001 or whenever the first one was initially prepared. But the most important aspect of it is whether or not the mitigation previously proposed is still appropriate. And given that the traffic volumes during the peak hours and on a daily basis haven't changed, and that the developer, the applicant, has, as Mr. Scully was noting, has already provided more than what he originally promised with Phase 1 in terms of an additional traffic monitoring machine and also additional crosswalks that were discussed, I would say that the overall impact of the project is being appropriately mitigated, and that this change does not affect the original mitigation plan.
Okay, thank you.
I'd be glad to answer any questions, too.
Okay. Mr. Lascardi, do you have any, is that it?
Nothing else.
Okay. Do I have anyone that wishes to speak and anyone else wishes to speak in favor of this modification? Okay. Do I have anyone that wishes to speak in opposition to this modification?
Can I ask a few questions?
You should just please stand and identify yourself, ma'am.
Okay. My name is Karen Alloway. Do you need my address too?
Please.
85 Ridgewood Drive. I live right off of Harvard Street. I know, I have a couple of questions. I know, I'm sorry, I forget, Abend?
Mr. Abend,
Mr. Abend, okay.
That's all right.
I was just trying to determine, I know you were just talking about, well, actually, the first thing I wanted to ask is, you said that you're really doing this for the city, but you're paid by Mr. Lascotti, is that correct?
Yes.
So how does that make you an independent reviewer if you're paid by the developer?
Well,
Now, let me, please address those questions to me.
I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't know
You
who I
sit
was
down.
supposed to ask.
What we do is, the planning board will take and selects the person. He is paid by, the bill is submitted, he is not paid directly, he's not paid directly by Mr. Lascotti. He's
Mr.
actually
Lascotti
paid by...
still pays you, right?
That is
Or
correct.
not you personally, but...
Yeah, it's not a direct payment. Okay? So, but he has to, and the selection is made by the planning board on who the traffic consultant will be.
Oh, so you guys chose, not...
That is correct. I am the one that back in December, when I knew this was coming up, I knew we'd have a lot of questions, I requested that Mr. Young contact Mr. Abend and make arrangements to to take a look at this change and to come back tonight with a report to us.
Okay.
We're trying to be proactive so we have all the information tonight.
Okay. Another question I have is, I know that there's this change now with wanting Kohl's to go in, and originally, I want to make sure I understand this, it was 6 stores originally,
That's correct.
and it was unknown what those stores were going to be,
That is
correct?
Well, we knew 2 of them.
Oh, you
2 of
did?
them were Bed Bath & Beyond and Dick's Sporting
Are
Goods.
those out now?
No, they're still in.
Okay. Well, okay, so now there's 2 big ones plus Kohl's, there's another big one. How can you take 3 out, really not knowing what those 3 would be? And I gotta back up, I'm sorry, I
Okay.
apologize. How do you make a determination of what the traffic would be for stores when you don't know what's in there? There's a big difference between a card store versus...
Okay. Number one, we have to follow state regulations, okay? And standard information that we have. The standards that we have, in fact, Mr. Liscotti, okay, could in fact come to us with this change with no names on there whatsoever. Names are not part of the requirement. In fact, it's just the opposite in most cases. So that's why whenever you get a development, in most cases, there are no names on that development. It strictly goes by the square foot of the facility, because it can change. It could change to say, yeah, we got Kohl's in there, might be coming in now, and we got Bob's and we got Bed Bath & Beyond, but that probably won't last forever. Somebody else will come in. So you have to take and you would change. We'd be going through this every time a new customer came in. So you can't do that. So what we do is the state and through the organization that traffic planners belong to come up with a standard plan per square foot and says, taking all of the different buildings, and some, yes, do more than others, but in general, the average per square foot will generate so many trips. A small card store, I don't know how accurate that is. I'll let you, Mr. Haben,
Yeah, the numbers aren't estimates, they're based on information. In other words, someone would go to a development, an existing shopping center, and actually count how much traffic goes in and out during the busiest hours and during the day. And that information is collected from various traffic engineers across the country and has been collected for more than 40 years and accumulated, and they create equations that relate to that data. Generally, a shopping center is not going to have a whole bunch of high trip generators, because some of them go in there because of the target. That's one reason why you're getting some of these other stores, because Target's going to draw the people, and they're going to take advantage of those people once they get on the site. So, to answer the question, you don't know exactly how many people are going to go to each store, but you have a pretty good idea from this data how many people are going to come to the center as a whole. And it does fluctuate up and down, and that's why the original study is trying to get an idea. We don't care if there's 14,028 trips or 14,313 trips. We want to know whether there's 14,000 or 20,000. That's what the purpose of the study is.
I understand that. Okay, I guess I understand that. So my last question is, and I'll direct this to you, Mr.
Okay.
Souza, because I understand that all these traffic mitigation plans are in place at these intersections, like at White and Harvard and Stagecoach. And if I'm understanding correctly, the traffic mitigation things that are being put in are is it to make traffic flow quicker or just to make it easier?
It was just the opposite. In most cases, the traffic mitigation was done to try to make it safer at each one of these intersections, and also so the people did travel on Harvard, but also in the case of Prospect and Stagecoach, to try to dissuade people from going that way and going straight up Prospect Street to the new road.
So the goal is to actually get people to keep going.
That is correct. And in fact, one of the plans is that there would be a sign in that area that would say mall,
Yeah, go down.
pointing up Prospect Street towards the Pioneer Park Drive.
So with those mitigation factors in place, I apologize, I don't have the numbers in front of me, and I know he had some changes.
Right.
What are they estimating for the number of cars on the road per day?
It says weekday 13,948, and evening peak is 1327
Per day?
Per hour.
per hour.
Per hour.
Peak per hour.
That's the peak, no, that's per day.
Yeah, that's the
That's at Harvard Street.
PM, oh,
and
PM
up to
peak, that's right, PM peak hour, the PM
How
peak
about on
hour.
Harvard Street itself?
I don't have that in front of me. That's strictly that intersection.
Okay, but I'm just trying to encompass the whole
Yeah,
road,
just-
because the road is such a narrow road.
Okay.
let me back up a little bit. We're throwing out the numbers, 14,000 or 13,900 something.
I just need to
Now,
look.
right, now just so that you do understand what that is split that in half, there's that group that goes to the center and then leaves.
It's slow,
Right,
one way or the
it's-
other.
So it's half that number of the total number of vehicles making that trip, the person. But only a portion of it is going to disperse. Most of the traffic we're projecting will be oriented towards Route 2. There'll be a portion going up the Orchard Hill Park Drive, up to Pioneer Drive, going out that way. A portion we have projected onto Harvard Street at this point, which could in fact be lower than what we've projected. We didn't change it. And we're talking in approximate numbers of about 15% of the project-related traffic. Number would be 1,300, that's about 180, 190, potentially in the worst hour. And then all these projections
190 cars an hour,
in the worst hour. Lower in the off
not
hours.
including Christmas time sales. Snowstorm.
Well, this is, I mean, what we were having to project on was basically a Friday shopping kind of a day. We're looking at the worst hour in the day, which coincides with the commuter hours. So we're adding whatever shopping-related traffic will be generated, adding that onto other commuter-related.
So what's the existing number for that road right now?
The existing number on Harvard Street is about 2,500 vehicles per day, about 200, 250 in the peak hour.
250 cars during
200 to
peak?
250 during the peak
And
hour.
you're saying only 190 once the mall's in?
No.
Oh, I didn't.
addition.
You asked me a question
Oh,
on how many of
190
those.
additional?
That's correct.
Right.
Now,
It brings it to roughly, if I can remember correctly, I go back, it brings it from 250 to roughly 400 at the peak hour.
So that's almost
Worst case.
double what the traffic is now. Right.
Well, it's a third.
Okay, but it's still concerning because going down that road, you know, I know we're trying to dissuade people from going down that road, Coles or no Coles. Right now, going down that road during peak time, at some points in the road, you are side by side with a car going down there, and increasing the traffic is only going to make things much more dangerous.
But we're not increasing the traffic.
You are increasing
No,
the traffic.
the
From what it
traffic-
is right now, you are increasing
No,
the
we've
traffic.
decreased it. The traffic,
You're saying that mitigation is going to decrease the traffic, is that correct?
Keeping in mind that this plan has been approved, and we're talking about specifically how Coles is affecting the
I
traffic.
understand.
I just want to make that clear, okay?
I'm aware of that,
Okay.
thank you. I'm just pointing out that,
well, the phase one trips, original phase one trips were 14,026. That was at that intersection with a percentage of that going up Harvard Street. The phase one trips today, is the modified plan, is 13,948. It's somewhat less,
Syria.
okay, around 100, 80 less. So that means percentage-wise, on Harvard Street, there's also going to be less. Maybe 5 cars or 6 cars.
We hope.
Well, we don't, and that's why we have in the conditions, we have a post build-out traffic study required.
And if it does, and if in the post, the traffic actually goes up, what are the plans in place to?
Well, we don't know yet. We'll, no, we will.
That's
we'll
not
pay.
comforting for the residents that
No,
live in the
we
neighborhood.
can't know. How do we know? We will have to, that's the purpose of the post, to find out just where the traffic impact is. We'll know then actual is, and then you act appropriately. We do not know, that's why you have the post study. If I didn't have if I knew today actually where it was going to be, I would do it today.
Right.
But we don't know that. So that's why we've required to have a post study. And at that point, if there's a significant change to the traffic study that was done, then we'll request appropriate action. I don't know what that is going to be today.
I understand, I'm just wondering if it's not prudent to just have a backup plan for those particular areas to make sure that you'll be able to act on it quickly rather than putting out a fire.
Yeah, Mike, let Mike answer that.
I just want to point out that if we knew where the problems were going to occur, we would have already required the developer to put mitigation there. And we've basically identified all the hot spots that we think that are going to be coming out of this project, but we also know that there are probably going to be one or two others that we may have to deal with, and that's the purpose of the post mitigation. It may be that some of the mitigation wasn't needed, but at that point you can't take it up and move it. So the idea is to review it afterwards and see if there's additional mitigation. But I also want to point out that one of the purposes of the original mitigation was to slow traffic down. When you slow traffic down through this area, whether it's Prospect or Harvard Street, that makes that route that much longer for anybody who uses this route to go north from Route 2, for example. And what you hope to do by making those delays and making that route longer for these people is all of a sudden a different route becomes more practical for them on a daily basis.
We have no way in and out except this. This is it for us.
Excuse me. Let me finish, please.
We have no way in and out.
We expect that everybody who's going to this shopping center or everybody who lives in this neighborhood is still going to use these roads. But people who don't live in this area are going to find that it's just too darn slow to drive through Harvard Street once this project is here and once these improvements are here. So the goal is to displace them, maybe over to Route 70 north and avoiding the city altogether, or perhaps another route. But the idea is to displace traffic. So it may be that these improvements and the additional traffic to this project will result in a very small increase compared to what was originally projected. We don't know yet. If the post-mitigation, post-opening study shows that, then there may be less mitigation needed during Phase 2. If it shows that there are hot spots, there may be more mitigation necessary for Phase 2, and that's why the post-monitoring is going to occur. The other thing to take into account is that Pioneer Drive and the Orchard Hill Connector are going to be in place at that point, which gives people a bypass for Harvard Street, which will benefit the neighborhood.
But a lot of people from the North Leominster area, I feel that the only reason they're going to go further down Prospect Street to take that new connector road is only because it's going to be backed up onto Harvard Street, because anybody knows that it's quicker to go down Harvard Street to go to where the target's going to be versus driving all the way down Prospect Street and waiting by the Lunenburg line to turn into Pioneer Park.
The only people that will know that are people that live very close to it.
Okay, we're getting into an issue, ma'am. We're getting into an issue. I want to make a point very clear. This is an approved project, okay? All we're looking at here is, and we've looked at the mitigation. If you feel that there should be some other mitigation, if you have another idea of things that we should do, I'm open to that. But this is approved. We have a very minor modification here. The planning board opened it up so that people could see it. It's a reduction in size of the original approved project. And that's where we stand, okay? I'm trying to take this in.
I know,
and I'm trying to transfer the information to you.
It's just very frustrating as a resident in the area, seeing all this go on and being worried about what kind of impact is going to go on in the area that I live in, my kids live in. I mean, it's very frustrating. And I know that it's already approved and everything else, but I think as a resident, I still have a right to speak.
Believe me, I'm not trying to stop you from speaking at all.
Okay.
I'm just trying to say, I'm looking to get to the point to say, I'm looking for,
I'll let you move on.
I'm looking for points of construction. Let's say, can you do this? We're looking for this to change. Well, you know, so I did.
Street a private road.
Well, you can't do that.
Why not?
Ask
Okay.
your city council, we can't do that.
Yes, right behind you. Right there.
Gail Simoto, I just have a point of clarification and question. Although
Yes.
Mr. Evans did say that if they knew it was going to be a problem, you know, they would take care of it now. I do believe the gentleman who spoke prior said that, for example, Harvard Street and Lawrence Street, they recommended a traffic light, and the approach was, let's wait and see what happens. And so I think it's not true that if you know it's going to be a problem, they take care of it now. I think there is something to be said for the fact that, you know, it's going to be let's wait and see, and we're all going to have to put up with it while we're all waiting and waiting and waiting and seeing and seeing and seeing. So I just...
I agree. We had the post, and that was in the reports, that Lawrence Street's a problem. But also the traffic committee, which I'm not part of, they're the ones that came back and said that we wanted, that this is what they were recommending, and so just like we take input from the Conservation Commission and other groups, we took those inputs from them, and that was their recommendation.
All I'm trying to point out is I don't think it's quite as black and white as we have no idea what's going to happen. We'll see down the road.
I agree with you 100%.
Oh, and now my question is, my understanding there's a high visibility crosswalk that's been installed.
Yes.
And so my question would be, where is that located?
It's right on Prospect Street.
It's not far from where you are, I don't think, or from where your family is.
It's at Prospect Terrace.
Okay, so that-
Prospect Terrace.
Okay, and there's going to be two more like that?
The traffic calming study.
Yeah, why don't you pass that up?
No, I just want to make
Maybe
sure
some of the other people
that
haven't seen it.
that was the one.
Yeah, that is the one.
Okay, and there's going to be two more like that?
The calming study, which is independent of,
Yeah. Go ahead.
the traffic calming study, which is independent of Orchard Hill Park, had a recommendation of 3 or 4 high visibility crossings along the whole corridor. As part of Orchard Hill Park, the applicant was requested to and committed to install one of them. Of the
So that's
3
the
or 4.
one, he's paid for that one?
He actually had to fund the whole calming study.
Right.
And then agreed to purchase 2 speed monitoring devices that have not been installed yet,
Right.
and install the high visibility crosswalk.
And then that's the one?
That is correct.
Okay, and so that's being done because the residents are going to be...
That is being done out of the results of the traffic calming study that we worked with the traffic committee on.
Because residents are going to be affected up and down the length of Prospect Street.
Sure.
From that.
And who has paid for that?
I just have a...
Who has paid for that? Has Lascotti or is it tax money?
No,
Scotty has paid for that.
That was paid for by the developer.
Because even people down on Prospect Street are going to be affected.
Well, one of the things, you know, while Orchard Hill Park Drive was going through, Orchard Hill Park was going through the review process, the city was also getting, the school was being built, hadn't been occupied yet. There were a number of citizens who reside along Prospect Street who were contacting the city, the traffic committee, they were coming to the planning board meetings, there were several neighborhood meetings, that they just had, independent of Orchard Hill Park, had raised concerns and issues on Prospect Street itself. Truck traffic, travel speeds, walking along it. So during the process of Orchard Hill Park, in developing a mitigation program, the board talked about a lot of different things. Mr. Aben actually was the board's consultant during the Phase 1 process. You know, the program came together, and that included having to look at Prospect Street.
I think I'm a little confused because...
No, there's two...
No, let me...
Go ahead.
Because you know, there's been recent assertions by the developer that that the neighbors on Scenic Drive and Stagecoach Road aren't even going to be affected by traffic.
We're not saying that.
No, that's what the developer said.
The developer may say that.
This is getting off.
This is not, this is off the question.
hearing.
It's off the hearing, but I want to try to explain. Because of people and hearings and what people were saying to City Hall, before there was Orchard Hill, that there was problems on Prospect. As part of that, okay, so that was already happening. As a tool of the planning board at Orchard Hills, one of the conditions that we made was that the developer would become involved with that separate issue and help fund that study. And that was a separate issue.
But my question to you is,
And then he
is that
came through with it.
crosswalk going to improve traffic
No.
as a result of the
Oh,
orchard?
I don't know.
So he's paying for something that's not even going to be connected to the traffic?
The intent,
It's created by
The intent is to slow it down.
the intent is a safety improvement to start addressing some of the issues that people were raising or
But is it related to
This is
the
all
development?
No, I just,
related-
we're going down to
related
that,
to-
it's not an issue.
Stop the repetition, please. This
You know-
point of order, we're way off of the subject of the hearing.
Yeah, let's get, it's not, that's not, the crosswalk was done by the developer as part of the city's traffic plan, separate from Orchard Hill. Just as the developer paid for a new wireless system to the fire department.
Right.
That was not part of it, it's a separate issue.
So just be clear, it won't mitigate the traffic from Orchard Hill Park? It might
No.
mitigate traffic, okay, thank you.
On Prospect Street.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Now, my name is Mark Lessert. I believe I heard the traffic consultant say that he expects that about 15% of the traffic will go down Harvard Street, 15% of the traffic that's headed to the Orchard Park Mall. Is that the case, or?
that's what we projected at this point.
Okay. Well, I'm just throwing an idea out. You know, it seems that the people who live along Harvard Street and who live in the streets and developments off Harvard Street are going to suffer the most impact from the increased traffic, especially when you consider how narrow Harvard Street is, you know. I was wondering, just as an idea to toss out, would it be possible to just dead-end Harvard Street before the Orchard Park Mall so that there was no access from Harvard Street to the mall?
Well, believe it or not, you're not the first to come up with that. You know, we looked at closing Harvard Street, we looked at one-ways in both directions on Harvard Street back 2-3 years ago when we were initially looking at this. And the general consensus of most of the neighbors, you know, right and left, was they didn't want it. Because they were afraid if I closed off Harvard Street down at the mall, then they would have to, for them to go to the mall, they'd have to go all the way up, back up Harvard to Prospect, around Prospect, and back in the other road. Or if they wanted to go to Route 2, they had to go by, way around. If you closed it at Prospect Street, then, well, people wanted to go north to Route 13. They said, well, now I got to go to Route 2 to go to Route 13. Okay, so no matter what we did, if we made it one way coming in, there were complaints. We had one way going out, we had complaints. So we did look at those alternatives of closing it one way in either direction, and talking to the neighbors and the hearings that we had, there were no solutions. There were in every matter there was objection to one of those so-called solutions. So we did look at it, okay, of those different things, okay, and that was done when we originally looked at this plan back 3 years ago, roughly. I'd like to wind this up if I can, but I don't want to stop anybody.
Quickly, Tenny Comer of 58 Cloverleaf Road.
Yeah.
Two thoughts. If it does become too much of a traffic issue, I've only lived here for a little bit over a year, and that's how I get in and out to my home to avoid the Route 13 traffic. Maybe it's possible to do something as wild as make it a speeded gate pass, just like we go through the Mass Turnpike. Those of us that live in the neighborhood have our little beeper and it goes off and we go right through. Or, number two, and the state may come in and do something like this because I am a title examiner. I do work for the state of Mass, okay, and I have been staying on top of this project. And I know that Mr. Liscotti was paid cash by Target over $2 million for 11 acres. So as far as I'm concerned, a lot of people here have money to pay for these things, but we do not in like the neighborhood. Number two, there's a possibility of a ramp directly coming off of Route 2 going into Orchard Hills Park, like what Digital was made to do over on 495. I know that there are people that live over on 146 with that new shopping mall, and I do not remember which town that is. This past winter with Christmas shopping, it required them a half an hour to get in and out of that mall.
Yeah, on both your issues there, We had that very discussion. One of my other members at the last meeting, because of the number of stop signs that they had and the issues that they had there. So I am aware, I think was that Grafton? No, that's Millbury.
Millbury, yes.
So, yeah, that's an issue. Maybe Mr. Aben or somebody else can answer. I can remember there was some discussion some time ago about doing just that, but there were two problems. You couldn't do it at grade. The railroad would just not allow it to go at grade. They just won't do it.
You mean a ramp directly off of Route 2
And,
onto?
no, I'm talking to go, because you have to cross the railroad tracks. Okay, the problem is you have the railroad tracks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we did have that
Okay,
discussion.
and so you have to get across, the thing is, if the railroad tracks were there, yeah, it's probably a good idea. The problem is you have the railroad tracks and the location of the track. So there was two problems. Number one, the railroad said, at grade, no way, no how.
Right.
And number two is to put a flyover that just isn't enough room to get the proper, angles and ramps and all the rest of that between Route 2 and the railroad, it's just not doable, and the cost is just astronomical. So, I mean, there were a number of reasons that was looked at and discussed, and at that time, and not only from us, but from the state, that was not a solution. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, we did look at it. Yes, sir.
I'd like to add my voice. I'm Bernie McCaffrey on Ridgewood Drive. I'd like to add my voice to Mrs. Alloway's here. I think you need a contingency plan. You say that you don't have anything, you want to study it after it's all in place. Well, I'm old enough to remember when they put in Searstown, and they said the exact same thing. We're going to study it when it gets in place. Well, you've got a traffic jam down there that nobody could devise if they tried to. And we also talked about the 146 shopping center. Again, you've had gridlock since that opened up July 4th all the way through these holidays. We don't want to live like that, and we think you ought to have a plan in case these numbers that these experts have are incorrect.
No, we
Because
don't.
I got a feeling that they are incorrect.
Okay, we do have a plan, in fact,
A contingency plan.
Contingency plan, not a thing
No, no.
that you're gonna watch it, because it's too late then when you get
No,
a mess like you got at Searstown.
In this study is a plan, okay? And this study says for
let's hear
in different intersections, if it reaches certain levels of doesn't work, then it requires a set of lights. Okay? And that's what this is. But again, is you take it to the level what we have. Now, I have to work with our traffic department and our traffic committee, and these are the recommendations they gave to the planning board. So that's what I'm trying to work with. So,
I don't think you addressed her second question about what if there was would you say, like going on the Mass Pike?
a gate? You know something, I meant to say something, I forgot. I want to commend you. That's a new idea I hadn't heard.
Well, write it down, just write it down, give us, we'll all pay for the little monitors and we'll go.
I can't do it in this proceeding, but it's a great idea.
But that in essence makes it a private way. I mean, I think it's a good idea, but in essence it makes it a private way.
So
Why can't it be a private way?
We tracked it to a private road.
I don't know, that's why I'm saying, I think
I don't know.
I don't know how to do that. I guess
Ma'am,
that's what I said earlier, and I didn't mean to be flip about it. I guess I'm going to the city council, how do you make it, we're always looking for the city council to make streets public
Should we
ways.
petition to the city council?
I'll be frank with you, I don't know how it's done.
I don't know. Like I said, it's a new idea. Maybe we should
Well, we have
maybe we should look at it.
technology to do it, and we have some very wealthy people in this room that can help pay for it.
Well, I don't want to go into that. Excuse me, please, Mr. Aben.
If you can figure out a legal way to do that, I have millions of people across the street in central Massachusetts who would do it to their streets because they would claim that you're driving through their neighborhoods to get where you're going, and you just can't do it. It just doesn't work, period.
I only have one other comment, because I want to answer your question, because someone else, it was either the Harpers or Mr. and Mrs. Zephyr who live on Harvard Street. I'm very familiar with that area. They said something about, at one point, I'm just letting you know this, I'm not making any suggestion, they wanted to make it a historical area.
Scenic Drive.
I think they were talking about Harvard
It's
Street.
Harvard Street.
No, to make it a scenic drive.
Or make
Oh,
it
make it a scenic drive, that's right, well, there is a
Oh,
scenic
not a
drive.
scenic drive.
Make it a scenic, you're right, that is the words they used, yeah.
Yeah.
Make it more traffic.
My name is
John Gravel, 51 Parkdale.
Can we make it more traffic? Yeah, sorry.
One question and a comment. My question would be, after the development is complete, and we do have, and the traffic, follow-up traffic study is completed, who pays the cost of something, what we've got, what I've heard tonight, and what I've seen on the plans, is we have a mitigation plan that means we're going to choke the traffic. We're going to narrow the roads, we're going to narrow the intersections, we're going to make right angles, so that we slow the traffic. That's the whole plan. It means that the neighborhood is going to become much more difficult to pass through. That's the intent. It's also going to make it significantly more difficult for the people who live in that neighborhood to get in and out of their neighborhood. If you slow the traffic, if you congest the intersections, you're going to make it more difficult for the people who live there. When the traffic study is completed and they require 3, 4 more sets of lights, who is going to pay for that? The developer's gone. Is it going to be the taxpayers?
No. See, the thing is, the interesting part is the developer is not gone. Is the developer, this is only phase 1 of multiple phases. So when he comes in for plans for developing the other side, or for the industrial piece that he's going to build, at that point, we will address those other areas. So that opens that...
So if he never does phase 2, or it never gets done?
Well, then,
would you guarantee it?
What I'm saying is, the amount of money that's being spent and the amount of money that's being spent to develop this road is the only way that he can recoup his, I believe, I don't know that for a fact, to recoup all of his investments, or to get his total return on investment, is to develop the land, the balance of the land that he
And it's
has.
not possible to post a bond to take care of these oncoming expenses?
No, not on those, because there are outside mitigations.
I have another comment, and to deal with the 15% of the total traffic is projected to hit Harvard Street. I'd like you to, again, go back to Searstown. Searstown has a direct access to Route 2. And I think that you'd find that a much higher percentage of the traffic leaves Searstown via the back entrance and other roads than Route 2. Yet we're projecting 85% of the traffic is going to jump on Route 2. And I think that is it just isn't going to be accurate. Go take a look at Searstown. Look at the back road leading into the back of Searstown. It's a nightmare. In all of the plans now are how do we make it wider? How do we add lanes? That's what you'll be faced with. You've got the same thing. You talked about another shopping mall that was built where it's total congestion. You've got 1,400 parking spaces, a peak of 1,800 cars per hour. The area is going to be very, very congested. It's going to be more complex because of the Searstown traffic coming in the opposite direction, and that's not being addressed. And I realize it has nothing to do with what you're talking about tonight. You people have made the decision this is an insignificant change. It's not an insignificant change because the traffic study is not accurate. And I think, you can go down to Searstown and look at what's going on.
I can't...
Common sense.
Yeah, I can't make any comment on Searstown because I was not on the board when that was first proposed or developed, or I have no idea what they've done for this. I do know that most of that traffic that is going out the back way is not local Leominster traffic. It is going out to Connector Road and going out to 190 and Route 2. But that happens to be the road that it goes on. Okay, so we'll go. Yes.
Senator, Bernie McCaffrey, 100 Ridgewood Drive. Just a couple of quick questions. Maybe I missed it. What changed from the December meeting when board member Millette asked Mr. Scully if the net traffic would increase or decrease, and his answer was it would increase? Tonight I'm hearing it's decreasing by 70 some odd cars per day.
I don't think he ever said it would
I don't remember that.
No.
He said it would increase.
You don't remember that?
He said it would decrease slightly at that time. and he gave us the numbers tonight.
Okay, I must have misunderstood then, I apologize. Second question, this data that was presented tonight, is this also based on the original traffic data that was collected back in 2001? Is that correct or not correct?
I'll let you gentlemen answer that.
The calculations are new calculations based on the latest Institute of Transportation Engineer database.
So it's a new database.
Okay, but I mean, have those been compared with the original numbers in 2001 for the projected other traffic on Harvard and Prospect Street, or no? Non-development
The
related?
evaluation that's been done as part of this modification has focused on the net change in the project from the original approval last year or the beginning of this year to what was proposed in December. And as far as that change goes, the base numbers along Harvard Street or Prospect or anywhere else are not relevant to that comparison.
Okay.
And in fact, you've got a negative, you get a lower number.
Okay, fair enough. Third question, the city selects a engineer to review the project by lottery or at random? Is that how it works? The selection of ABEN and Associates, in other words?
We have 3 or 4
that you select.
different traffic companies. We've used VHB before.
Yeah.
But they're working on the project, so we have ABEN, and we've used MS Transportation on other projects, and there are other qualified transportation companies. Some of it's to who's available to do the project at the time.
Sure.
Just like any other engineering.
I guess
they have to be a qualified, certified professional engineers, traffic engineers.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is there anything that would prevent, you folks from having the traffic numbers presented now by Mr. Scully reviewed by someone other than the traffic engineer who reviewed them the first time around? In other words, ABEN has reviewed the original set of numbers and they've also reviewed this new set of numbers. Wouldn't it make sense to get a new set of eyes on this new set of numbers?
Not necessarily, because we have somebody that's familiar with the project, and unless I knew there was some kind of a problem that, which you use the basic baseline drawing numbers from the Society of Traffic Engineers, or whatever that your organization is, and that's what you verify the numbers. Now, if it means that sometimes that would be possible, sometimes it's not. We try to use different engineers at different times. In fact, when we do different projects around the city, we don't use the same consultant engineers. We try to go to different consulting engineers around the city for different projects. So but once an engineer starts a project, we usually stay with that engineer until the project is completed.
Okay.
Just because he has the background on that project.
Obviously, there's a lot of concern among my neighbors and myself about these numbers, and I think the most disturbing aspect is that, and it goes back to something that even Board Member Vittorioso referred to at the December meeting, and that is the idea or the notion that 4 20,000 square foot stores, shoe store, tire store, Hallmark store, would come out with the same traffic counts as an 80,000 plus square foot Kohl's department store would generate. And, that in and of itself is rather incriminating, of these numbers. Either the first set was wrong or the second set was wrong, because how can that be? How can 4 shoe stores, 20,000 square foot each, generate the same amount of traffic as one Kohl's department store? And, I think it would make people feel a lot more comfortable if there were a review by someone other than the engineering firm that reviewed the original set of data.
And the reason I made that comment was because Mr. Lascotti that night came in here looking for our approval in one meeting, and I'm not an expert in traffic study at all. I'm not an expert in any of these on Mr. Scully's end or Mr. Aben's end. And so Mr. Lascotti came in here saying, I didn't even have to tell you it was Kohl's, but to me that was enough. I need Mr. Aben to come back, and I need Mr. Scully to come back with some figures. Now, and I'm not saying this for any, I've been on this board for 10 years. I don't think we've ever asked for a second opinion. I don't think it's necessary, and that's out of respect for Mr. Abent, who's done other projects for us, as so is VHB, and we basically just go through a list and we basically take turns, where people take turns. Now, my suggestion is, and unless you think, my parents live up there, so I know the area well, and I sympathize with you, and unless, I guess my suggestion is, I know it costs money, but unless you can come up with some other figures other than saying they're not right, and I'm not disagreeing with you when you're saying they're not right, but if you can come up with some supportive evidence for us to hear otherwise, I would listen to that. But I'm relying on the experts. I'm relying mostly on Mr. Abent, more so than Mr. Scully, because he represents Mr. Lascotti. And so that's the reason I made that comment when I did back in December, because Mr. Lascotti came in here saying, hey, I don't have to tell you it's Kohl's, but my first reaction was just like yours. Well, everyone wants to shop at Kohl's, and no one wants to shop at, if you're going to go buy tires at Tom's Tires, you're going there for one specific purpose. But if you're going to go to Kohl's, you're going to have 50 million things to do there, and everyone's going to go there. And now my expert's telling me it's not going to affect the traffic.
Okay, I'd like to...
We'd like to hold off on your decision because we could do just that. We could have an independent traffic study by the neighbors up there and put a set of numbers in front of you that we would be comfortable with. What would be wrong with that idea? Adverse suggestion.
Because who's going to say you don't skew your numbers too? So now we have to have another independent study done on your independent study to do an independent study on our independent study to do an independent study on the traffic engineer study.
You just suggested that it might be worthy
I made the suggestion.
Anybody here who believes that a Kohl's is not a major anchor store the same size as a Target is having pipe dreams.
Footage. It's based on square.
Well, we're talking traffic here.
It's been suggested that we should get someone else, and this project has been
okay.
before us for more than 2 years. And you can't tell me that I'm the one who just gave you that idea.
Okay, Carol, okay, settle down. I would like to, this counselor in the back.
I just want to make one specific comment to the intersection of Prospect Street and Lawrence Street. And it's in, really, and I'm going to make the leap of faith that Mr. Scully's numbers are correct. If you look at his report, the intersection on peak weekday traffic, that intersection I believe is a D, and would, because of the full build-out, go to an F rating. And on the weekend, it currently has a C rating on an A to F scale, and would go to an F rating on the weekend at that intersection due to this project. So we can say that because of the full build-out of this project, the intersection of Prospect Street and Lawrence Street will be an F rating for 7 days a week. If I remember, I haven't read the study for quite a long time, but I think that sticks out as being an accurate statement. And the discussion of a traffic light there, in part, Mr. Scully said not only did he meet with the Traffic Advisory Board, but he said that what we're going to do a wait till a post-discussion because we want to see there's going to be a lot of different traffic flows. And that seems to be a dual argument. Either you believe in his study and you believe in his numbers, or you don't. You can't generate a report that generates an F rating and then come back and say we want to wait to post-mitigation to see what the traffic numbers are. There seems to be an inconsistency there. I have a fundamental problem with that intersection. I do believe that it's going to continue to be a problem and it will be a worse situation. And the only other point I would like to make is that the idea that we're going to send all this traffic down to Lunenburg, as we hear now, is an issue with them, which has not been discussed with them, and they have a similar concern about that, and I know that's another city, but it's a city that we're going to have to deal with. But to me, it rings a little bit false, because this project was approved without the ability to do that. So to say, in other words, that road was not done. It was approved without that road being done and without the ability to send people down to that road and to come in the back way because the road was going to be approved. So there's a little bit of sense of, I have a little bit of a concern when you can say that this is all based upon going in this back way and using this alternate route and sending the traffic into Lunenburg, and that makes it all work. In reality, this project was approved without that option. So those are my two concerns.
I believe on the environmental impact report that Lunenburg was involved with that. Okay, the initial one. But I'm not 100% sure of that. As far as,
I'll just make my comment. My comments about their impact is just from, of course, the contact that we've had with their selectmen.
I agree.
That's what I'm basing my.
I believe that there was some prior discussions. To what degree, I don't remember, but I know they have to be contacted per the regulations of the environmental impact study, and that's why we did the reports, and all the reports take into, not only that, but also take into Lancaster Street and also the intersection of Route 70. So all the figures for 70 Shirley Leominster Road, Lancaster Street, Leominster Road, Pioneer Park, and Leominster Road, okay, so all those numbers, and we made sure that those numbers were all made available, and I believe were made available to Lunenburg. To what degree? This was a long time ago, and I just don't remember.
It would be helpful in my dealing with their selectmen on this issue to sort of be able to say that they were involved in that. But fundamentally, the other issue is the inconsistency on the stance with regard to Prospect Street and Lawrence Street, that intersection. You can't sort of have it both ways, if you understand my position. You can't say, our report says it's an F, but we're not going to do the proper mitigation there because we're going to wait to see how it happens after the project.
I think the answer to that, and Mr. Scully, why don't you answer that? I think the answer to that was, it was going to go to an F whether we had this build out or not.
It was actually, it's level source F under existing coming out of there, so the project doesn't change that operating condition at all. It was discussed over and over during the EIR process, as well as the review for phase 1, as well as during the Prospect Street traffic calming study. I don't know, Council, if you were here when I was talking, but that particular location in the calming study, we have suggested potentially putting at least a beacon there. It is the consensus of the traffic committee that really want to see what happens with the connector to see if there is a shift. Everyone is expecting a shift, which we really have done a limited shift in our analysis, but from the Route 13 corridor, Lawrence Street, over into Lancaster Ave, connector down to 2. And, every time you put a signal in, there is the maintenance issue and the cost issue. And it was the consensus of the traffic committee to hold off on that decision, try to make it safer. A beacon would highlight the intersection, do the other things along Prospect Street to reduce speeds, and as everyone's talked about, there is the monitoring afterwards. The monitoring does include Main and Prospect to make any potential signal timing changes after we see what's going on, as well as any of the other locations that we have.
But you stand by your report, which says that on weekend traffic peak hours, that intersection does get reduced from a C rating to an F rating at full build-out. And I don't believe the 2% sort of growth that is factored in as natural growth in traffic is going to reduce that from a C to F. It's strictly a reduction based on this full build-out of this project. I mean, I think that's what your report says, if I'm not mistaken.
The Saturday midday, but in terms of the weekday PMP...
Weekend rating is the biggest deterioration because of the retail traffic. It goes from being a C to an F rating on that intersection.
Right, Saturday it does. But it already experiences the problem during the PM peak hour, which is 5 days a week.
Weekdays, I think it's a D rating right now.
It's an F.
It's an F rating on weekdays, so it will be an F. The biggest deterioration due to this project is a C to an F. So again, my point is we don't have to really wait to post. Their report, which if we take as being the factual as best as we can get right now, says that there will be this major deterioration, which is not related to 2% natural growth, which is strictly related to this build-out. I mean, you got to either say the report is what we live by or we don't live by it. And if we live by it, there's a major degradation in that intersection, at least on the weekend.
On that report, you got the report, remember, the traffic committee looked at the report. We took the inputs from the traffic committee. Their decision, and the traffic department, the police department, the fire department, all a part of that, they all said that, yeah, we agree, it's close to an F now. In fact, sometimes it is an F. It's going to get rather than just sometimes. It's probably gonna be all the time, but let's see what happens, and that's why we have the 6-month build-out. It was their decision that came back to us to do that. They're the experts, and that's why we did it that way. But at the same time, we didn't let anybody off the hook. If it does in fact prove out, it has to be done, then something will be planned and worked with the city out to correct the problem.
And how long does it take if it's determined 3 months after it builds that it's a
Well, it's 6
failure?
months, and 6
6
months, and then
how
some
long?
planning time might be, so, I don't know, I don't know, I can't answer that question. I get into engineering, things and times and budgets and all the rest of that. Do I have anything else new that we can bring forward, somebody like to bring forward? Do I have a motion?
Motion to close the hearing.
Motion made and seconded, close the hearing, all in favor say aye. Opposed say no.
Junk anyway, but you gotta...
Motion carries.
Huh? I didn't want to say? I didn't have more to say. I didn't have more to say, but I think the abutters have more to say.
No, they have to leave. Yeah, I'll tell you what.
No, I don't want to close the hearing. They want to have an expert. What's another meeting? We're gonna have an expert.
It will take 3 months.
You know what? We'll just go on with the meeting. We'll just go on with the meeting.
Okay.
They heard it all before, and they're just getting technical, but they want it to go through. But they gotta listen.
Okay, call to order. Well, let's take a quick few minutes here. Taking a break, 5 minutes.
Okay, let us know.
On the members present, we have to delete Mary Olivier out of there. She was here in spirit, but not, but...
There you go.
And on the regular minutes, change the date to reflect December 7th.
Okay.
Well, it says December 7th on the regular hearing meeting, regular minutes. Oh, it says November 16th.
Yeah.
Yeah, stop cutting and pasting.
Okay? Okay, we got some amendments.
Move to accept the amended minutes.
Motion made and seconded to accept the amended minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Plan submitted, 3.1 A&R plan. Carini, Johnson Street. Yeah, but this is the one that we denied.
This is the one we're...
We needed further explanation and discussion.
Okay. For the recommended Bill Haney with Hagan Engineering, I've come here to try to give the board a better information.
I'm listening.
There's several owners that own this overall tract of land. And what happened was, in the initial deed research for this strip of land, which is on the plan shown as owned by the city, it showed that there's an easement. So we went through some negotiations with the city for the DPW to relocate the sewer line that runs through there. We had that run through the McGuire Group to have that work done. Everything was okay and on its way. So then at that point, we moved forward to do the survey work and actually pushed the deeds back and actually got the book and page of what was supposed to be an easement. We found out that the land was in fact conveyed to the city of Leominster. So that is actually a parcel of land that's owned by the city and shows up on our book as an easement until you push the deeds back and you read the document that it refers to. During that time period, the buyer of the overall tract of land had negotiated the sale of the house once he bought it to a subsequent buyer. And that person's going to end up buying lot 1A plus lot 5A. The reason why there are 2 lots is because there's separate ownership between these parcels in this general description here. So there's one deed that takes up this piece, one deed that takes up this piece, another deed that takes up that piece. So there's basically 3 pieces of land that we start off with. And as I said, it was the understanding of everyone that that was needed. The plan was to have this sewer line relocated and that this would become the second lot, and then we would move forward, put a house in that lot as a simple A&R lot. We would then relocate the sewer easement around and bring the sewer back down into John Street back. Because of the timing of this, the applicant is forced to move ahead and refer to these pieces here as parcels, saying that they're in fact not buildable lots or parcels at this point in time, creating this lot 1A, which is a buildable lot in the existing building and zoning, and for the purposes of the existing deeds that are in place, merge these into lot 5A, and my understanding is that the person buying house 165 is buying lot 1A and lot 5A. This piece here, what we'll have to do is, when and if we get the agreement with the city to actually convey this piece of land out and put the easement this way, we have to come back with another A&R plan to create this as a buildable lot.
To endorse plan.
Second.
Okay. Motion made and seconded to endorse. Any further questions? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. 3.2, A&R plan, Blue Share, Lawrence Street.
I'm not sure if anybody's here to speak to it.
Okay.
Basically, a land, you have two existing lots, 10 and 11, basically creating that small triangular piece in the back of 11B. We transferred out to 10A.
Right here.
11C?
Right. Small 11C is what's being actually created. It's basically a land swap between the two properties.
So 11C goes to 11B?
10A.
To 10A.
Oh, it goes to 10A?
Right.
And what's the frontage? Is adequate frontage
For that zoning.
for that zoning?
Yep. There's already houses actually on both of these parcels.
I move to endorse.
It's right there. That's it? Just that little chunk going to here. That's it. Well, probably because
What's
he's
something to do
close.
with that easement?
Probably close to the shore easement, yeah. Okay. Do I have a motion?
I did.
Motion made and seconded to endorse. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Definitive plan, Whitney on Central Street. This has to be scheduled for hearing.
That was just a preliminary before?
Yes.
Yes.
We have February 1st at 6:30.
February 1st.
So moved.
Second.
February 1st at 6:30.
Is this going?
Okay.
Is this on your behalf or not?
Do I have a motion made and seconded for February 1st at 6:30? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries.
No.
We'll give you a copy.
Yeah, we have a right to.
Yeah. He's aware of the bill is.
You know.
Okay. Old business. 4.1, Deborah?
You got that, right?
Peter and Deborah Phillips?
John?
Okay. Peter and Deborah Phillips, 1215 Main Street, Leominster, definitive subdivision plan for 6 proposed lots on Mary Avenue. Dear Mr. Souza, on behalf of our client Peter V. Phillips from Hannigan Engineering, I'd like to request that the discussion regarding the Mary Ave subdivision be as depicted on tonight's agenda for the planning board for meeting be tabled until a later meeting. We would request that this discussion be put on the agenda for the February 1st, 2005 meeting, depending on the board's schedule. Hannigan Engineering Incorporated will be present at that meeting to address any issues regarding this project. Thank you for your continued cooperation regarding this project. Sincerely, Hannigan Engineering.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to move to February 1st agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Brenda.
Thank you.
4.2 Mitch Gill, 435 Lancaster Street, Leominster. Special permit for the purpose of building a duplex on the westerly side of Baker Street and unaccepted street. Open for discussion. I think the one concern that I have on this one right now is if in fact, what the grades would be to continue Baker Street through, because that would be a through street. And we want to make sure that that is and that we don't landlock or cause undue hardship to the other lots in the area, or preventing somebody from building, okay? So what I'd like to do is request Wayne to get a hold of Mr. Gill, and he didn't stay here, to request that the topo to the ends of the current paved section of Baker Street and the Florence Street end. So as Baker Street comes in from Florence Street, and at that point what the topo is, and then how that could in fact be connected to a Baker Street as a through street. Okay, so that's what I'm concerned about, that we can in fact do that.
John, can I, this is under subdivision regulations, but on grading, section 4.1.2.0, grades of streets shall not be less than 0.5%. Grade shall not be more than 6% for collector streets, 10% for minor streets. So if you look at that as a paper street, from Wheeler Street to Florence Street, all the way through, we don't know what those grades are. We just know what the grades are in front of the project.
That's correct.
Like you just said.
Right.
And it's in our subdivision regulations under 4.1.2.0. I think we ought to take that into consideration.
So, reference that and tell them that we need the grades for that road.
Which section was it?
This is from Florence Street all the way down to Wheeler Street. It's section 4.1.2.1.
Point A to point B, we need those elevations.
And that's, that would be from Wheeler to Florence. I mean, I walked 4 or 5 times Sunday.
Right.
It's the whole push through entirely.
Yeah.
You're gonna change that.
Because I can see that pushing through.
Yeah, and it's gonna push through because there's a couple more lots there. So, I know the neighbors are concerned. I know I walked it, I know John walked it, I know Armin walked it. There's 2 other lots that are buildable there. And so you know they're gonna be using both ends of that street. So we'd be remiss if we didn't look at the whole thing in its entirety versus one lot.
Okay.
Could I just throw something in? I don't
Sure you can.
But I am not up to speed completely on what conservation had to say about this when they came in front of me.
They said it wasn't a wetland.
They said it wasn't.
It was not a wetland. So they got a negative determination. I did happen to watch it on TV, so.
But didn't it also,
They have, the people in the area have gone to MIPA for a study to determine if it's a vernal pool. But a vernal pool is outside the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission.
And that determination is not here yet.
No.
Okay, and that,
Table this.
and the other thing is that so what he was directed or asked to do by the Conservation Commission, and that's why he put the wall in, is the wall that all of his construction is outside of the vernal pool or that proposed wetlands area. So that's why his wall and all the rest of that construction.
All of his drainage goes right into the berm.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah, if you look at the way it V's now.
So.
Right,
Well, it's
so-
wet there now.
That has to be addressed also.
But it's actually, what he's proposed to do actually cuts down on the
It
amount
diverted all the drainage
down
into
towards
that.
Terrace's house and actually leads it back into that vernal pool, most of it.
That is correct.
So having too much water could be as bad as having.
Which might actually help out the Terrace property.
In helping them out, the impervious surface is also, is going to actually be more of a detriment to what we believe could be a vernal pool.
That's correct.
So that's a definite. So I agree with him as far as, is it possible for us to table it and wait for that legal study to come in? Does anybody know how long it will take?
I
Well,
don't,
we wanted to table it anyway to get the elevations between point A and point B.
right. So we want to table it for that, and I don't know, see, that's been done by the independent neighbors, the neighbors.
That could take 3 months.
So I'm saying 2 or 3 months, but I would have I don't know how to deal with that.
We could give them up to our
Wayne, do you have
time
any
limit.
input on that?
We have 90 days to make a decision. Right. So there's no rush to make a decision.
There's no rush.
And you have asked for the other
We have
information.
90 days
about
as
the
of when, Wayne? We have 90 days as of the
It's
original
closing
file.
the hearing.
Closing of the hearing.
Closing of the
Closing
special
the hearing.
permit from the close of the hearing, so.
So special permit, so we have 90 days from today to do that, right?
So why don't we put it on in the second meeting in February as under status and see what it is, and then we'll ask Mr. Gill to come back?
And he may have the grades by then, but it still might not address the other issues that we're
Yeah.
concerned with.
Well, then maybe there'll be a more specific time as to when we'll get that information.
Or we could maybe get an input from the Conservation.
Can't we just go by the Conservation Commission's recommendation?
Yeah, I think so. The Conservation Commission says they have no jurisdiction, it's a vernal pool.
Well, we can
And it's gonna,
we can certainly factor that in to our decision, but we're looking for other information here anyway.
right.
So there's no problem with waiting till they give them a little time to get an answer back from the state since they've requested that. But we would like Boucher to tell us if they could get between point A and point B of Baker Street at a
Right.
10% grade.
Without hurting those lots.
And how that might affect the grade in front of their property. Because if they're at 7%, now they could bring it up to 10.
Yes.
Oh, that was the permit, that was not.
Well, you also had the issue, I'm not so convinced that the drainage or the retaining walls or the drainage mitigation plan that they put in place is actually going to take the water away from those other, from Cabot Terrace property and the other property next to it. I mean, if you look at that, that's just a natural place for that water to go. I don't care what you put in there.
Well, they're going to take it off of their property.
They're going to take it off when they're building the house.
Building the house.
They're going to dump it onto other property.
It's been draining into the area anyway.
Well, it's been draining into the area where the water is in the
That's
basin.
correct.
I'm not talking about the basin, I'm talking about the neighbors' backyards as well. Are we gonna be creating?
That was a high grade. That was 2 feet higher than the drainage swell.
According to tonight's map, but
Well, that's supposedly a new topo that was just
I
done.
still have concerns with
And
that.
it's a, I believe it was a stamped drawing, so, okay. So because of that, you have to take that,
Oh, I understand, but I
those
still
grades,
have a
right.
concern. I mean, the swell was on the property line.
that is correct.
It was right on the property line.
Well, they don't have much room, so
No,
that's what they have to do.
They seem pretty set.
Cabot Terrace should be okay, yeah. Okay, a motion would be to continue the discussion on this table list until the second meeting in February.
So moved.
Second meeting in February,
Right.
15th,
Okay,
old business.
right. Motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. New business, Mr. Cataldo. 10 registered voters amend Article 1 of the revised ordinances, Section 22-12-12.5, non-conforming uses, structures, and lots by adding or for use as authorized by special permit to the end of Section 12.5 and creating a new Section 22-12/12.5.1, which will allow for special permit by the Board of Appeals on existing building and industrial commercial district to be used for other uses listed in Article 2, Section 22-6 as being permitted as of right or by special permit. There were, I had a paper here.
There was
the amendments to that.
Is this it?
Right? No. I had it right with my minutes just a few minutes ago. You got that one? Okay. I know I got it here. The amendments to this are, on petition 50-05 be amended as follows. Amended the section read, Leominster City Council may grant special permit rather than, and that just changes from zoning board of appeals. 12.51, 2, 3 stays the same. 3, delete this section entirely.
That's this, turn the page.
And 5.3, site plan approval has been obtained from the planning board in accordance with the procedures and the design and performance standards
They
set
want
forth.
to delete our participation. Well, that doesn't lead to a very good recommendation from the planning board.
That doesn't make sense.
No, that's what we were trying to make sure we still had site plan approval.
Well, they're saying because it's only a use and the footprint remains the same. That's what they're saying.
No, site plan is kicked off if you get more than 10 parking places and all the rest of that bit. I mean, you still gotta have site plan for
Well,
To bring it
not
up to the current standard.
Not necessarily. If the building is there, they're gonna just move in. You know,
No, you still have access and parking to deal with on the site plan.
That's on a site plan.
You're not good.
Well,
I mean, you want people to come in and, as in the past, just come into a building, rip out all the curbs all the way up the street, pave the whole front lawn area. And that's what's been happening all over the city without approval. They're all illegal.
well, I guess before, I see your point now, but I guess before we hone in on that point, I still think the whole thing needs to, the whole amendment or petition needs to be revamped. Because what's the, is the intent to eliminate the whole abandonment and make it just any non-conforming, any building that had a non-conforming use at one point?
Yes, I believe that.
And if that's the case,
Then this doesn't fly.
I think 12.5, abandonment in our ordinance needs to be stricken in its entirety and the whole thing has to be rewritten.
Well, this is in addition to 12.5, it's just maybe in the wrong place. But what it allows is for any industrial or commercial building to be used for residential, business, commercial, or industrial with the special permit from the city council. I'm not sure it's a good idea. I mean, certainly it will add value to these properties, but there would be no incentive for any of these owners to go out and look for an industrial use if they can make twice as much money putting a residential use into one of those areas. What it will result in is an added expense to the city. Police, fire, schools, traffic. As it increases, gets very expensive.
Well, I guess
I have to be amused sometimes by the idea that the solution to traffic problems in Leominster is traffic calming. I mean, when you go out in gridlock, how much more calm can you be?
It's not moving.
What we need in some places is to speed up the flow with widening channels and lanes rather than to calm the flow.
Well, I think the first thing we have to determine is whether we are whether we're in favor of the whole concept to begin with, and if we are, then how we would recommend it to the city council. So first we have to determine if we're in
I think this could become worse than mixed-use zoning. My personal opinion. I tend to recommend against it.
regardless of how it's proposed.
In the case of Rockwell Village, I can see it being very helpful.
Well, I think that's where it comes down to, it goes to the city council. And the city council makes the determination, because they're looking at it should be looking at a citywide thing. And, I'm hoping that the city council will have the ability to say, when they look at this building, well, this doesn't make sense to make this residential or commercial, we want to keep it industrial, and that makes it their decision, because they're looking, and if there are traffic What concerns me is that as we look at this, as you say, it's in the abandoned building. Now, let's say hypothetically, you get a building that's been abandoned, and it's 25,000 square feet for the sake of a number, and you put a 10,000 square foot, you come in for a special permit, for the building. Now I get 10,000 square foot, and I'm leave 15,000.
Does it have to be an abandoned
That
building?
15,000 is no longer abandoned, because that's part of the general building. So you might be able to get the first one in, but you can't do anything else, because it's in the abandoned building section, which relates, so in other words, the first pretext that this tells me is that the building has to be abandoned before you can do anything.
That's why my suggestion is, if we're going to, if we're in favor of this in theory, I think we need to recommend to the city council, well, the first thing I would recommend is it goes back to the 10 registered voters and they amend the petition, because I have amendments on top of amendments, which is confusing. But if I had to do it myself, I would delete 12.5 abandonment in its entirety, just have it revoked and then start all over again. Because it sounds like the theory is, the petitioners don't care if the building's been abandoned or not abandoned. If it was once a non-conforming use.
Well, 12.5 abandonment has its own special.
So maybe it needs a whole new section.
But I don't even think we need I don't even think we need that anymore, because it would be encompassed in like what Mr. Whitney was saying.
No, because that has to do with when a non-conforming use is not used for 2 years, it goes away. That's what the abandonment.
It doesn't even have to be non-conforming though, just an industrial building, whether it's half full, 3/4 full now, or empty for 5.
See, that's why I say, where it's written now in the abandonment section, once you use that building, it's no longer abandoned. So therefore, you couldn't use this.
I agree with Carol, it should be taken out and put it in its own section.
Yeah, it should be its own section. It should be, in other words, take it out and it should be rewritten and put into, 4 buildings that are...
Whether their intent was that adding creating a new subsection, whether they thought that was going to be
A standalone.
a standalone, right?
But it's not.
But
It's not that it should be done.
That's right. It's a standalone.
As its own standalone, and then you can
Like
address...
the use variance used to be, it was by itself.
Right.
That's right. And it should be a separate use variance.
Yep.
And abandonment should stay the way it is.
Yeah.
Because there is a...
So I would leave abandonment the way it is, and then our recommendation, I make a recommendation, go back to the city council and recommend to them that they give it leave to withdraw and that it be re-looked at, okay? And possibly with the 10 voters, some input from our planning department, which we now have a professional planner, okay? And then we look at this and come up with a new section, and that could be submitted from either by the 10 registered voters or by the planning board, which either way could be done.
Or even,
Okay.
another piece of that too, John, is if we had it as a standalone section before, the use variances, why did we take that out? Or did we make a mistake by taking that out?
No,
We
use
should
variance
reinsert.
is a state case law and precedent, it's not allowed by boards of appeals.
By Board of
That's why you
Appeals,
have to have it
but
city
by
council.
special permit to the city
You
council.
can't let the Board of Appeals
So it's not-
begin making spot rezoning.
Right.
Right.
So as long as we keep it out of the zoning board of appeals, but
Yeah, I don't
how
have-
our old ordinance was written,
Wayne has a comment.
Because there's different criteria for variances and special permits, and variances are really basically soil, slope, topography, which when you try to put in a use, how do you find the hardship based on those criteria?
That's right.
I think that's what he's saying, the case laws come out that's really, if you want to give relief, a special permit's really the proper way.
Yeah, special permit, and I don't have a problem with city council. That's fine. But it's got to be in the right
After
place.
hearing tonight, I agree with Carol, I think I don't think it's put in the right place.
It
I think it needs to be taken out of that context and put somewhere else.
And I'll be honest, I'm not certain of what the intent is. Like, for Jim, what you're saying is you want it to be you want to be able to obtain a petition for a special permit before whichever body for any industrial, for example, any industrial building that's empty, it could have never been a non-conforming use. Your argument's going to be, this industrial building, an industrial zone has been empty for X years.
Not even. If it's been empty, like my building's been empty, that's fine. If that building has been full and a tenant moved out of it, an industrial tenant moved
Okay,
out.
all right, well,
And now you
that's
wanna put-
my definition of empty, but then there's no one there, and you're a prospective tenant.
Right.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, that would concern me a little bit. I would rather, at some point, it have been some non-conforming use, because how do I know there's not, or I would want some time period, some time frame. I don't want to muddy the waters, because...
Well, see, that's what coming in is each individual user. I mean, someone comes in, they sign a 5-year lease. If they move out, then it reverts back to the underlying zoning.
What I think is this requires...
Does after 2 years according to our zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
If it's empty.
Well, but when the person moves out, if somebody came in to fill up that section again, they'd have to come back in front of the city council for a special permit to do whatever they're going to do.
But how do I know there's not...
Isn't that way? But let's say they're going to renew the lease after 5 years.
Yeah.
You'd have the same situation where they would have to come back in front of the city council again? No, you'd just be revolving it.
Would automatically...
See, so there's some things there that...
Right, I mean, but that's the way that the use, if you look at the way that use variance, it was very simple.
What it used to be.
It went in front of the Board of Appeals, so if we could do that and just city council, it would be back to what was there.
But see, what's determined, so you can't go to this, what was just mentioned, you can't go, use variance can't go to the Board of Appeals.
Right, but it could go to the city council.
City council,
Yeah.
right.
But I guess my concern, Jim, with your, behind your theory is that, say an industrial tenant moves out of an industrial building, and then you approach the owner to put in for a commercial use. There could be 10, but there could be 10 other potential industrial tenants out there that I would prefer to have in there.
That's the problem, is there's not. And we've got a bunch of these... Right, there's not today. Right, but 10 years from now, there might be, and if we have a use variance and someone moves out, then it could go back to industrial without... My building that's sitting down there, I cannot rent to an industrial tenant. No one wants it. It's not designed for it. It doesn't have the loading capacity for it. It doesn't have the ceiling heights. So the building is going to sit there empty like it has for the last 6 years empty. Now, when we bought the building, we thought that the use variance was still there like everybody else that's gotten these things. All of a sudden, it wasn't there. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have fixed up the building because it's worthless as an industrial building. It goes right along with all the other empty buildings that there are. Go through Tech Park, it's ridiculous. And yes, maybe someday there will be a use for it, but there isn't right now. And that was a pretty ugly eyesore sitting in one of the gateways coming into Leominster for the longest time.
My recommendation to the city council would be that I would recommend approval to it, but, I'm in favor of the whole concept in theory, but I think they should be withdrawn and rewritten, because it's just, I don't know where it's supposed to go, and I still think the whole abandonment, because I still think what Jim's proposing, and which a lot of people would probably be in agreement with, would still cover 12.5. That's why, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, 12.5 should be deleted, and the whole thing should be rewritten with that whole concept in mind, as Mr. Cataldo had outlined in his. That's the way I see it, because it would encompass abandoned property too. What difference does it make if it's abandoned or...
No, I'm not saying...
It needs to have its own head.
I'm not, it doesn't need, but I'm saying as the way it's written today leads to immense confusion.
I haven't talked to Eddie, 'cause he was out all last week, and I don't know if that got put under there, because maybe it was the intention to not to take a vacant piece of land and put commercial use, but to use vacant buildings.
Right.
So that could be why it's under there, so I don't know. That part may need to say about the abandoned buildings, I think it does serve a purpose.
That could be, but it has to be defined.
I think if that was the intent, which is what I thought was to use vacant buildings, there may need to be some other language.
Maybe, and my point is, if 12.5 is going to remain in here, that has to be amended as well to keep it consistent.
I agree with you that it doesn't even belong in the 12.5.
This is a good one for our new director to sink his teeth in.
I think there's a solution, I think it's not probably as a quick fix. I mean, a lot of towns and cities are starting to look at it, especially with a lot of the old mill buildings, is adaptive reuse bylaws and things like that to try and make some use of these buildings then instead of having them torn down and just sit there vacant.
Just sit there, yeah.
Adaptive reuse. yeah.
So I make a,
You have any history on that?
We started researching in the previous towns. We had that reason, we had vacant mill buildings that they didn't want to just see sit there.
What did they do?
We were just starting to look into it, but I know Worcester and some other communities have actually come up with bylaws specifically for reusing older buildings.
And I spoke with Mr. Rollins about this, mixed use comes up. Well, I don't know what the percentages are, but to make it mixed use, and you have 20% or 30% of the building being used for commercial, that leaves me with 70% of the building that's empty and will not be filled. I mean, that building's been sitting there done with a sign on it for, I don't know how long now, 6 months, 7 months? I have not had one industrial tenant come to me and want to use it. But I've had a lot of dry cleaner and small stuff that we can control that, because of where the building is situated and how close it's situated to the edge of the road and the parking situations, we have to be able to pick and choose who we can put in there for a user. And having the special permit granting authority, I think, really gives the town the city the most protection as to who's gonna go in there.
That's not the issue, okay?
But I think like Carol said, it needs to be, it's whether the board is under, if everybody's in favor of coming up with a answer to how to address the issue is the biggest.
I think in general we are.
Yeah.
We want to address the issue, and then that's why I think the recommendation is that in concept, we wholeheartedly agree with the concept, but in essence, there are a number of issues with it being in the abandoned building section, where that abandoned building section should be modified as an entirety to modify this, and that a use portion of that be put in. Because as I mentioned before, you'd run into that same situation, as the building is no longer abandoned. Once you put something into it, then you couldn't use this. So you really have to address that whole issue. And so that's why you could put it in the abandoned building, or like I said, you can come in, with some other, as Rich mentioned, some new types of use variances, use building, and I think we should look at it further.
Yeah, I don't know what the city solicitor's idea was when they drew up where this was going to be put in. I didn't have any discussions with them whatsoever. Eddie took care of all that.
I don't know.
I mean, she may have been thinking it had to only do with specifically abandoned building. I mean, if that was the case, then it's well written. But if the intent is non-conforming use, it doesn't, from what you're telling me, the petitioners actually had in mind, didn't have to be a previous non-conforming use. It could just be any industrial building. And so that my recommendation.
And then it's not abandoned, and it doesn't, this is the wrong category.
That's right. So so the language needs to be broadened, actually.
Yeah.
Not only, it has to be broadened beyond non-conforming.
I think a motion is in order. You want to make a motion?
I'd like to recommend, maybe you'd want to make an unfavorable recommendation on this as it's written, and then you can add to that same letter, the board generally agrees with this concept, it just feels, for the reasons you're saying, it may not be in the right context as it's presented, and for the reasons that you heard tonight from the public, that, no, we didn't mean just, vacant buildings, we meant existing buildings.
I think that's a good idea. So I would move to recommend denial as to...
As written.
As it's specifically written, and I would recommend to the city council that they either seek a leave to withdraw the petition and it be rewritten for broader language to meet the intent of the petitioner's requests, or in the alternative, to simply to skip that step and seek bring that to the attention of the city solicitor and seek rewriting, whether it be an additional clause in the ordinance or striking clauses and having substitutions.
I'm not gonna try to redo that.
No, Wayne
She's
had it
got
nice
that.
and simple, though. Wayne had it nice and simple.
I know.
We believe in it in concept, but, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we believe in concept, but we want them to know what to do after that.
Well,
Right.
Claire's here, Jim's here.
Yeah,
Jim's
but they're
heard it all.
not our minute takers.
No, but I'm sure they understand what we're talking about.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor, and I'm not gonna try to repeat it.
Second, Carol.
And
Thank you, Sal.
I have a second.
Wayne knows how.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Okay, 5.2, Lascotti Development Corporation, Walter Court, Leominster. Site plan modification for the approved Orchard Hill Park plan located off Harvard Street. Now, open for discussion.
I think you really did do, in my opinion, here's my discussion. I think you did real due diligence by sending this to a public hearing, again, for the benefit of for the neighbors, and for benefit for them to give us their feelings again. I wish they were here when we first started putting this project together 3 years ago. But I do consider it a minor change, and I do consider it a reduction in the existing situation. So that being said, I'm in favor of approving the site plan modification.
Okay, is that a motion?
I'll move it, absolutely.
Motion to recommend approval of the site plan modification.
I second.
And I have a second.
I'd like to see this
Any further discussion? Go ahead.
approved with the condition Connector Road be completed before the occupancy, before the store openings, because if you don't, you're gonna have a worse than the Blackstone Valley shops traffic jam getting in and out of it.
Okay, that's a condition?
As a condition.
Is it in the original?
Connector Road, no, it's not in the original.
No. It couldn't be in the original because it was a separate owner.
It was an oversight, it should have been in the original, and I think
No, we
we need to get it in there now.
No, we weren't allowed to do it before because we tried.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Lascotti?
Chairman, if I could just say something with that. Technically, it is still a separate owner, it's Pioneer Park LLC, but I fully want to comply with the board's wishes and intend to. However, as you know, the board rescinded the subdivision plan, so I am in the process of doing some new plans and expect to be coming before your board and the city council shortly. But I can't guarantee how long that process is going to take because it's completely out of my hands. It's my full intent to have it in prior to the shopping center open, that's why I bought it, but I don't believe it should be made as a condition because it's the process to get it to where it has to be is completely out of my hands. It's with this board and the city council.
I'm not sure that it's out of your hands. You can build the road the way it was designed, and the fact of the matter is that all of the traffic studies are based upon that road being in. So if the mall opens, the shopping opens, without the connector road completed, all the traffic studies go out the window. I could stand corrected.
Okay, I have an amendment to the motion. Do I have a second to that amendment?
Second.
I have a second to the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment to add that the road be completed prior to the opening of the stores, say aye.
May I have another comment before we vote?
Sure.
This has been open for discussion. There's not a lot of work left to complete that road. It's almost completed, just a short stretch.
What's the proposed opening for the first retail store?
July.
And we're talking about completion of the road, what, spring?
I hope to have it in spring, but again, it's dependent upon the planning board and the city council. I have no control over that.
To be basing it on hopes, right?
I understand that, and it was approved originally without it.
I think it can be done. even if your new subdivision isn't ready. The road layout is there. You can stand at the end of one edge of pavement and see the other edge of pavement. All they have to do is be connected.
Well, he can't do that until he has a subdivision plan approved.
gone, there is nothing there now.
There is no road. There is no road, there's no subdivision.
Well, he had the layout and he owns all the land.
Well, he could resubmit that same subdivision plan.
Yeah, there's a lot of options that can happen. I'm just saying that it's out of my control is all I'm telling you.
What would we have done if he hadn't purchased the land from Mr. Young and they were still fighting? Were we not going to allow him to open up and...
We had no. You had to let him open.
Yeah.
So this is our chance to correct it. There was a problem, now this is our chance to correct it. But I'm only one voice, I don't care how you vote, let's just vote.
I think that Mr. Lascotti is correcting it by himself. He bought the property and he's going through the steps. If he's slowed down by our process, it's not fair to not let him open the store. That's my...
I don't see us slowing him down, all right.
Well, I agree with Armand, I mean, because I think he's right, then all that traffic study factored in that road being open.
I think it's a catch-22 on that part.
Yeah.
Aren't we committed to have to agree with having that road completed? Everything we just said tonight to do with traffic study was based on that road being completed.
That is correct.
Now how can we reel on that and say, oh, forget about that? We just told all the neighbors that.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
You just told them all the cars are gonna come up right past Harvard Street, they're gonna go down to the new connector.
I know Greg has
and
all the good intentions to get us through.
Right.
And I don't want to use the word assume, I'm very confident that he'll have it done in time. And I understand his position, obviously. He's saying that, he'll do everything he possibly can, but what happens if there's a snag? What happens if there's a flaw? What happens if something gets held up in his procedure?
If the neighbors stayed, I can hear them saying, well, and what happens to the traffic on that road then, et cetera, et cetera, if one of the stores
We're
go over,
committed
it's
to
going to be Target.
what we represented tonight, and that includes the completion of that road.
Right.
Is there a vehicle allowing him to finish that road without going through?
The roadway layout has already been presented, it can be just put in the same layout that's already been approved. If he wants to come in with a subdivision and change some lots around, and that could be a different subdivision.
But the road's not gonna change.
No.
Is that doable, Greg?
I mean, he said he was going to do the road in the spring, and the first store's opening in July. What's the problem?
Look, you're gonna do the road, or you're not gonna do the road. Why hem and haw about it? It's a very short stretch of road, just go out and connect it.
I agree with you on it, I'm not arguing the point.
We're not gonna slow you down, we're gonna give you all the approvals you need from this board.
Well, say we go for a subdivision and some neighbor decides they want to appeal the subdivision. What am I supposed to do? I can't open my stores that are built because somebody appealed the subdivision?
Well, we're not gonna wait to go through, be held hostage on an industrial subdivision on whether you're gonna build a connector road or not, is what I'm saying.
I understand, but I'm saying what if somebody appeals that? Instead, because now that it's rescinded.
The road go in regardless of what you do with the rest of the land. We're not opposed to the industrial subdivision, we've already voted in favor of it once.
What if somebody appeals it now, because they have to go through the process again?
Could the road layout without the industrial subdivision just be submitted as a road layout, Greg?
I'm sorry.
Could you just submit the road layout without having the subdivision?
I intend on coming before this board and the planning board, and the planning board and the council in January.
Let's rescind our vote on this subdivision and bring it back.
Well, if I could just say one thing, I mean, if you want to do, if I have no objection to, if you want to say having a binder course down, I'll take the risk of putting that in, and it's a private way, if you will, and as long as the board doesn't have any concern with that being a private way, we'll deal with the public portion of that later on. I have no objection to that, to at least get the traffic through.
I'm just concerned that if the road's not in, we're gonna keep finding excuses. It took 8 years to resolve the Home Depot access driveway.
Well, I didn't spend $825,000 this morning.
I know that, like you said, it could be beyond your control, but
As long as
let's get it done.
if it's a private, if the board's okay with calling it a private passway for the interim time, I have no problem with that.
that wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah. And would that work?
I think it'll work, at least it's a, I own it, it'll be a private road, I guess, just like any road.
Posted as a private road, pass at your own risk.
Well, the same thing, but the back, the Home Depot road is a private road.
Yeah, that's fine, I'm just telling you, it's a public way.
All the way from Mechanic Street to Home Depot is private.
Mechanic Street to the bridge
Yeah.
is a private road.
City doesn't plow. City plows.
They look the other way.
No, they got a deal worked out.
I fully anticipate this to be resolved very shortly, I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention, as long as...
Yeah, it seems like you have an alternative.
Yeah, as long as it's I understand initially it'll be a private way instead of an accepted project. That's all I wanted to point out, and I'm happy that's fine. That's not, I have no issue with that.
All right. So that takes care of the traffic studies and
So on Armin's motion, Armin's amendment, rather.
You want to amend your motion,
you got a point of order, Wayne?
Do you want to maybe specify then where it says to be completed? Or do you want to put in...
As a private way.
Or just to some standard, that way you're not coming back and revisiting it again to... If he has it up to one standard and the board intends another standard, or, you know what I'm saying?
Do you want it up to subdivision standard?
Well, he would,
Well, you're talking binder course and then private, as a...
I think...
Right now it just says, Connect Road be completed. Do you want to...
Anything for roads gonna have to come
Through the
back
binder course,
binder course?
and
to...
into the same construction standard as the existing Orchard Hills Park roadway.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that, on the amendment, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. On the motion as amended. Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Communications. City Council petition number 48-05. Peter Campobasso, Esquire, for James Whitney, President and Treasurer of J. Whitney Development Incorporated, accept and lay out Jordan Way as a public way. This requires a site plan, site visit. And Jordan Way is off of, off of Warren.
Oh,
which is
yeah.
It's
off
actually a
of North.
portion of Warren Street too is gonna be accepted.
Okay.
That's the next one?
Off of Main Street,
No,
up like...
it was actually all part of one subdivision plan. It was a continuation of Warren and then...
Then they your other subdivision?
No, this is off of Main Street.
It's off, right near the new assisted living facility where your Willard used to be.
Where you built before, right?
Yeah, it goes in there and then that runs up to a T, which is Jordan's Way.
Right.
He's required to,
Oh, that's Jordan.
he's just fulfilling one of his conditions.
Well, I gotta do each one of them, sir.
Well, no, he just mentioned another road, though, is that?
Well, Jordan Way, and then you get,
That other one's not his.
The other one's not mine.
So that's...
No, but I just heard two street names in the first petition, but
It was
this
Jordan off Warren.
page only has one. That's
Off of
what I'm
Warren.
I did a continuation of Warren Street, it was about what, 400 feet? And then it came to a T intersection and that became Jordan's Way. Was the next part of the subdivision.
Brendan, can you bring a copy of the plans?
For,
no, well, you have to come in with Warren Street separately.
I'm not sure
It was
whether
all
they're
part
in
of
the
the same
folder, but
subdivision
their
plan.
folders are there in the back.
Right, is the
I think it was just
DPW
worded,
Yeah.
might just have been left off.
DPW.
Probably not.
Yeah, we have to refer this to the DPW and set up a site walk.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second to refer to DPW for a site walk.
Yeah, it's from this.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. City Council petition 4905, Peter Campobasso, Esquire, for James Whitney, President and Treasurer of J. Whitney Development Incorporated, accept and lay out of Southers Crossing as a public way. And this is the same
This is not you?
That's not me.
That's actually
I'll take
Robert,
the bond money if there's any bond money.
that's actually Robert Isles that owns that.
How'd you get involved? I don't know.
Look at the name on here.
City clerk.
It's the same attorney and it was filed at the same time.
Right, so I think
Somebody, typing fast.
Move for site review.
Yeah, you have a copy of...
Oh, refer to DPW answer.
All I have is the letter from the clerk.
So this is wrong?
It's wrong ownership.
It's not James Whitney.
Yes, that's
Robert Isles.
Jay Whitney Development.
That's what came down from the clerk's office. That's
Because we're gonna have to take a look at their petition to see what they actually say.
Yeah, let's, send that.
Table, motion to table.
Yeah, I'm gonna table
It's a
it.
typo error, yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, good.
Motion to table,
Seconded.
motion made and
Mr.
seconded.
Chairman, they are all, Sutter's Crossing has been submitted. Okay, so I know that Sutter's Crossing has,
Just get the typo corrected.
Right.
Yeah.
so I think you can go forward with the sidewalk. We've gone through all the stuff with DPW, everything's done.
Where is Southern Crossing?
Sutter's Crossing is the one that's off of the old Fallbrook Ave, which is now known as Pennacook, right across from his building.
Oh, Pennacook, okay, in the back, okay.
Left there, right. Okay, so that Sutter's Crossing is in front of the city council. What I want to check on, and
Yeah,
I'll
we better
check
make
on
sure
the city council, is the clerk's office to find out exactly what the wording is on Jim's to make sure it says Jordan's Way and a portion of Warren Street, and to make sure that Sutter's Crossing says the correct owner. Okay, but either way, is that the actual filing?
We were pretty tough tonight. Thanks for jumping in.
So I don't know, Charles City.
No, I'm waiting for him to...
What tax all again.
Like I said, I talked to DPW today, they weren't 100% satisfied with either of them. One of them, there's an issue with some streetlights and a couple other things.
That's true, the street lights aren't done yet, right?
I forget which one it was.
I went there today myself.
Yeah, the petitioner's name on the Sutter's Crossing is actually Robert Isles.
But I thought,
So I withdraw my motion and move
I forgot about
to,
the connector though. I thought it was
move for site visit.
Yeah, we'll just amend this.
And that's not Brenda's, that's actually his part there.
Okay.
He said.
Okay.
We should amend mine to the portion of Warren Street.
Okay, why don't we take a,
We're gonna read this one.
okay, I'm on to this other one, this, the city council petition 4905, Peter Calvert Esquire, for Robert Isles, president treasurer of, I'm not sure.
Just Robert Isles.
Robert Isles, accept layout Southern Crossing as a public way, refer to DPW and site. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Request a correction from the city clerk on this.
Yeah.
Okay, going back to 6.1. This should also include a portion of Warren Street.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for 6.1 to include a portion of Warren Street. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Do I have a director's report?
No.
Hey, don't do it.
We'll give you piece of advice, you never have.
Right away.
All in favor?
Well, we used to sign them.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Happy New Year.
Can I have that, do you give me the
Motion
correspondence?
to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries.
Yeah.
Shut up. If you have any further questions, please
Brenda will have one for you on the
hesitate.
desk.
Thank you.